Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was the top Pokemon trainer. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by shadyboy, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. The blonde young man knocked upon a door. He wore a blue shirt with black pant. He looked back down the hill and questioned why the old man had his research facility home in the outskirts of Pallet Town. It was too unguarded and would be an easy place to rob, not to mention help would take long to arrive if there was an emergency. The door was opened by a slightly brown-haired professor who stood in a white lab coat. The professor's hair was graying slightly. This was Professor Oak. "Why has it been 2 years already?" asked Oak. He motioned for the young man to enter. "Come on in, Naruto." Naruto walked in, admiring the research materials in the lab. It had everything one needed to study Pokemon. He eyed Egg Hatcher machine with interest before moving on. "I came back as you requested, old man," replied Naruto. He searched his pocket for his Pokédex. Oak gave Naruto a confused look. "To return my Pokédex for a newer one," said Naruto. "You are already losing your memories, old man." "Oh," replied Prof. Oak as he brightened up, remembering the message he had sent months ago. He ignored the jibes about his age and answered. "That's right, I did send a message. Sorry for not remembering." Naruto nodded. He took out his Pokédex, giving it to the professor. Professor Oak left the lab room to find the newer Pokédex. Naruto looked at 3 Pokeballs in a lighted machine that held all 3. He got curious and inspected the Pokeballs. "Those 3 are starters Pokemon for new trainers," said Oak, appearing back in the room. He carried a black box. "Really, when are they starting?" asked Naruto, looking at all 3 Pokeballs. "Today," replied Oak and opened the box. He handed over a new red Pokédex. Naruto inspected it before simply pocketing it. "I don't see what the point of the Pokédex is." "For my research, of course," replied Oak with a large smile and his index finger pointing upward. "You'll be happy with my Pokédex then, because it's mostly filled," replied Naruto. It was ridiculous how hard it was to find some of those Pokemon to fill up the damn Pokédex. Oak's smile widened. "I know. Those Pokemon you've captured and sent via PC to me have greatly helped my research. As long as you keep paying me and making sure my Pokemon eat daily, you can watch them in your backyard safari and write about them all you like," replied Naruto. The professor was actually a big help when it came to money. The old man was loaded. "You should go visit them. They probably miss you," said Oak, motioning toward the back door. "Already did. First thing I did," replied Naruto. "Really?" asked Oak, surprised that someone had broken in without him knowing. "I caught a new Pokemon on the way here," replied Naruto, changing the subject. "What Pokemon?" asked Professor Oak curiously. "Well, it isn't anything rare, but I like it," replied Naruto and pulled out a small Pokeball that enlarged in his palm as soon as he clicked the center. Oak breathed in anticipation. Naruto lightly tossed the Pokeball away from himself. The ball opened, releasing a stream of red light that slowly took shape. The Vulpix appeared, staring at Naruto questioningly. It barely gave Professor Oak a glance, but the man was greatly interested in the small fox already. Its multiple tails moving and looking magnificent as it yawned. "It's a baby," said Professor Oak as he inspected it closer. "I know, right," replied Naruto with a smile and picked the baby fox. "I usually avoid foxes, but this little guy looks so innocent and scared that I just couldn't leave him in such a scary forest all alone. I would have felt like shit had I left him." Professor Oak laughed. Of course Naruto wouldn't have it in him to abandon a baby Pokemon. "Grandpa, I'm here." The door to the lab opened and a teenage boy entered, or at least he looked like a teen, but Naruto quickly saw that the boy was younger than he looked. The boy had brown hair much like Oak and wore a black shirt with brown pants. "Barry, you're here already?" asked Prof. Oak and looked at the clock that hung on the lab's wall. "You're a bit early, aren't you?" "I couldn't wait anymore," replied Gary and walked right to where the Pokeballs were. "Before you get your new Pokemon, I'd like you to meet Naruto Uzumaki, one of the best trainers around, though still unacknowledged by the league or any gym," said Oak with a straight face. "I'm not a trainer," stated Naruto. "I simply make these weird animals into pets. Loyal, smart animals with cool moves." Barry stopped and looked at Naruto with a calculating look. He looked Naruto over before bowing respectfully. Naruto stared back with a blank face. "Nice to you, I'm Gary Oak," said Gary with a respectful tone. Naruto nodded and said, "Just get your Pokemon, you're probably dying from excitement." Barry smirked and left to choose. "There's an EV, Squirtle, and a Charmander," said Oak to his grandson and pointed at each Pokeball as he listed them. "I'm choosing EV." "Grandpa, you just gave the future Pokemon League champion his first Pokemon," proclaimed Gary with a cocky smile. Professor Oak smiled. "Work hard and I'm sure you'll manage to become champion." "Thanks, Grandpa," said Gary and ran out the door, allowing Naruto and Oak to see a group of people waiting for him. mostly girls that were dressed as cheerleaders. "He's really popular," commented Naruto. It was eerily similar to Sasuke's fangirls, only Gary seemed to enjoy it. Oak was in the refrigerator taking out drinks for himself and Naruto. "That's my grandson for you," replied Oak and then added, "Why don't you try the Pokemon competitions?" Professor Oak handed a soda to Naruto and opened his own. "Too old," replied Naruto, "only kids bother with that stuff." Oak was glad he hadn't drank his soda, yet otherwise he was sure he would be choking. "I'll have you know kids aren't the only one and you're only 19. "I might, but," replied Naruto and opened his drink. "I simply want to make enough money and settle down peacefully." "You might end up meeting someone to settle down with," replied Professor Oak trying to convince Naruto, which wasn't that hard really. It was easy to get Naruto to try something. "I hear that the champion for Sinnoh is quite the beauty." "That's Sinnoh, you delusional old fart," replied Naruto then added, "a continent away crazy." "You could go to Sinnoh later on after the Indigo League, Orange, Johto, and Hoenn," suggested Oak. He already knew the date each league would accept challenge, and he listed each league perfectly, so one would be able to participate in them all, one after another. "I think I'll try the league here in Kanto here, and if I like it then maybe I'll try out the others," replied Naruto as he warmed up to the idea. "And put in a good word for me if you ever meet her." "Of course," replied Professor Oak. "I'll call her later tonight and tell her about all the rare Pokemon you have captured." "That's not subtle at all," yelled Naruto smacking the professor's head. "And you know her?" "Watch it, I'm having enough memory loss without your help," reprimanded Professor Oak. "Know who?" Naruto fumed but managed to control himself. He waved a goodbye and opened the door. A kid with a hat entered as he left. The old fart was crazy and he was the only one that notices. He sighed and opened his Pokédex. It showed the map, that was good at least. The first gym would be at Pewter City for the Pewter Gym badge just past Viridian City who had the Viridian Gym, but the Pokédex's map clearly crossed Viridian Gym out. Naruto sighed again and started walking. He took out his Vulpix. "Walk with me, you need to make those legs of yours stronger," said Naruto to the small fox. "Being cooped up in a Pokeball won't make you any strong." Vulpix yipped in acknowledgement and started walking at his side. "I already have a fox," said Naruto to the small fox. "Kurama is a Ninetales, but he hates being summoned. Kuruma says that the world stinks and that he prefers to spend his time sleeping, then again once he's out no one can beat him in battle, so I usually just leave him alone, unless I really need him." Vulpix nodded. It was already looking tired from the walk. "That settles it. You're going to be my first choice for every battle until I find a Firestone to evolve you," stated Naruto. "That way you'll become strong fast." Vulpix felt an overwhelming sense of pain heading his way in the future, but nodded. "It's not as bad as it sounds," said Naruto calming the small fox. "But if Kurama wakes up and sees you he won't tolerate a weak fox, so we have to make you strong to avoid headaches." Vulpix simply nodded and kept slowly trudging next to Naruto. His legs sore from overuse already. "We'll rest here," said Naruto choosing a tree to sit against. Vulpix collapsed on the ground, he was clearly exhausted from the long walk. The place had grass everywhere, making it a nice place to rest. Naruto unsealed a small scroll from his wrist. He opened the scroll before unsealing 2 bottles of water from it. He sealed the scroll back into the small seal on his wrist and turned to his fox. "Here," said Naruto. He offered a bottle of water to the small fox. He opened it for Vulpix. Vulpix gladly got the bottle and bit down on the mouth of the bottle before lifting the bottle upward with his head and gulped the water that flowed down. Naruto laughed in amusement. A fire type happily gulping water. Vulpix ignored the comment and sat down relaxed. His eyelids lowered and drifted off into La La Land. Naruto laughed and picked up the sleeping fox. He placed it on his lap and drifted off to sleep leaning against the tree. The sun was just disappearing taking the last ray of daylight with it. He was a Jinchuriki, he could probably sleep in a blizzard peacefully if he needed to, a simple outdoor summer night wasn't anything he had to worry about. Poke. Poke. Naruto's eyes snapped open. He glared at the Pidgey that was many trees away pecking at a tree branch. Stupid bird thought it was a woodpecker and was agitating his sensitive ears. He looked around and noticed that it was already day again. The sun was up above him bathing him in warm sunlight. Vulpix was still on his lap sleeping with a soft snore. Naruto looked back at the Pidgey that had forced him awake and nearly laughed out loud as he saw a familiar-looking kid trying to catch it. He perked up as he spotted the kid's Pokémon. It was a Pikachu. A rare mouse-type Pokémon. Naruto silently chuckled as he watched a boy have trouble making his Pokémon obey. The Pikachu was headstrong and too proud to be someone's tool. Naruto woke Vulpix whose curious ruby eyes looked at him questioningly. "Look over there," pointed Naruto toward the boy who had taken up to battling the Pidgey himself but was easily overwhelmed with gust. Vulpix's tails wagged. Naruto took that as a sign of amusement. The boy picked up a rock out of frustration and threw it at the Pidgey and missed. The rock passed by Pidgey and hit a Spearow. Spearow attacked back with vengeance. "That was dumb," commented Naruto with a sweat drop. He then watched the boy run with Pikachu. Pikachu turned and shocked Spearow. It had enough of Spearow. Spearow fell from the attack and cried out loud. "That just made it worse," commented Naruto as more Spearows appeared backing up the first Spearow. The boy took his Pikachu and fled. Naruto thought about helping the kid but decided to not butt in. Maybe the Spearow event will make Pikachu trust the kid. Vulpix stood up looking at the darkening sky. "Looks like it's going to rain," stated Naruto. With a poof he had an umbrella over his head ready for the rain. He started walking for the town he had been heading for. Vulpix stared at him in amazement before resuming to walking. "You can ride on my shoulder once it starts raining, until then you'll walk," said Naruto with a smile and lowered himself to pat the small fox. "Don't worry about the rain. I'll let you back in the Pokeball if you want once it starts raining." Vulpix nodded. Naruto entered Viridian City. The rain had stopped not long ago and the sun was back out making it look like a beautiful day. A beautiful day would always come after the storm. Naruto looked at his side to see Vulpix next to him. "Come on, I'll take you to the Pokémon Center," said Naruto and started leading Vulpix to the Pokémon Center. The city was quite beautiful with tall buildings almost everywhere. Dozens of them were business buildings, which he honestly didn't know much of. It looked like a great place to live, that was all Naruto could claim. "Naruto." Naruto turned upon hearing the voice and spotted Gary running toward him. "Hey." Greeted Naruto with a friendly smile. The kid seemed arrogant, but to him Gary was an open book. "I challenge you to a Pokémon battle," shouted Gary. "If I beat you, an experienced Pokémon trainer, then I could leave confidently for Pewter City." Naruto scratched his head. He looked down at his Vulpix and smiled as he came to a decision. "Okay, but only because you'll be a great help for my new Vulpix." Gary grinned and pulled out a Pokeball. "Alright, a one-on-one battle then. But first we need a more private place," said Naruto looking at the street where people were passing by. Gary nodded. Naruto and Gary both stood at a nice open clearing. There were trees surrounding them, but not much. It was out in the outskirts of the city, so their battle wouldn't cause any property damage. "Vulpix," commanded Naruto. The small fox jumped in front of Naruto. It faced Gary and let out small steams of flames out of its mouth, warming itself up for battle. Gary threw his Pokeball. "EV go." A brown dog-like Pokémon appeared. It had a small white chest with brown eyes. "Use quick attack EV." EV charged at Vulpix with a zigzag pattern. Vulpix looked at Naruto for orders. "Vulpix dodge and use Ember twice in quick succession," ordered Naruto. Vulpix dodged just when EV was within arm's reach and threw a small fireball at EV's undefended back, making EV scream in pain. The second attack hit EV's head, silencing the yell. The small EV collapsed unconscious. The first Ember had served to knock EV's breath with surprise, and the second had stopped EV from getting any air and hurting its head. It resulted in EV dropping unconscious. Barry stood mouth open at the sudden loss before running toward his EV. "EV, are you okay?" asked Gary. He cradled the small Pokémon. "Don't worry, EV will be okay. It was just Ember. The heat must have caused it to faint," explained Naruto to calm the young trainer. "EV will be okay once it gets fresh air. The flames had cut off its air supply during the battle, causing it to faint." Barry nodded looking less worried. "I guess this means I need more training." Naruto simply nodded and then looked to his small fox. "Great job, Vulpix, I'm glad to see you handle the battle so well for your first. EV, we're going to go to Viridian Forest and get stronger," proclaimed Gary. EV yelled in agreement with Gary having woken up. It didn't even look hurt. "Then we'll beat that Vulpix." Barry and EV both ran off, leaving Naruto standing alone with Vulpix. Naruto simply laughed. The kid didn't even let the loss affect him. At least the brat had guts. Vulpix, we need to get to a Pokémon Center," said Naruto. He picked up Vulpix and started heading for the center again. "Oh my, that's a very healthy Vulpix," said Nurse Joy as she took a look at Vulpix. "He's naturally strong," replied Naruto to avoid telling her how he kept Vulpix so healthy. The nurses would always want to know every time they treated one of his Pokémons. He wasn't going to tell Nurse Joy that he channeled chakra into Vulpix to help it develop faster. "Well, he's perfectly fine. All he needs is rest," said Nurse Joy and took Vulpix away. Naruto nodded and decided to find a chair to rest. A soft couch was just what he needed. As he moved to find his couch, he spotted a familiar kid again. It was the kid with Pikachu, but it was obvious that Pikachu wasn't with him. Naruto decided to avoid the kid for some rest. Naruto woke up from the sound of kids arguing. He looked toward the source of the noise and spotted an orange-haired girl yelling at the boy. Ash was his name apparently, and she wanted a new bike because he destroyed hers. Naruto yawned. He stretched before getting off of the couch. Attention all listeners. There are Pokemon thieves within Viridian City. Key. Naruto tuned out the warning from the speakers. He went up toward the counter and picked up his Vulpix from Nurse Joy. "Now take care," said Nurse Joy with a wave and smile. "Yeah," replied Naruto. He still felt a bit creeped out that every Nurse Joy looked so similar. He could see their small differences due to his ninja training, but they all looked so similar that he wondered if they had some kind of insane dominant gene or something. Naruto left the center with Vulpix on his shoulder. He channeled Fire Nature Chakra into Vulpix. Vulpix's red coat lightened, turning into a beautiful shade of red. It practically glowed. "Hey, you stop right there," shouted a commanding voice. Naruto stopped and turned to see who called. Vulpix too looked curiously. It was Officer Jenny on a motorcycle. "Yes, officer?" asked Naruto. He didn't like the suspicious look in her eyes. "You look suspicious enough to be a Pokemon thief, and that Vulpix is obviously being forced to obey you," said Jenny and pulled out a Pokeball ready to fight should he attack. Naruto's sweat dropped along with Vulpix. "I'm not a Pokemon thief, ma'am, I'm just passing through with Vulpix here," replied Naruto. Vulpix yelped in agreement. Officer Jenny locked eyes with Naruto and stared at his eyes. Seconds passed with her staring at him. Naruto started to lose his nerve and was about to look away when she spoke. "I'll need to see ID of course," she said. "Sure," replied Naruto and started to pull out his Pokédex, but that was as far as he got before Officer Jenny's radio went on and she leaped onto her motorcycle driving off and leaving him standing uncertain of what just happened. "I think it's safe to say she was weird," said Naruto to his Vulpix. Vulpix nodded in agreement. Naruto shook off the weird experience and started heading for Viridian Forest. Once he passed through the forest he would reach Pewter City and finally get his first badge. He wondered if gym leaders were as strong as he heard. It wasn't that he never battled before, just that he never battled a gym leader. Naruto felt at home in the forest. It felt almost like Konoha's forest, but with smaller trees. He smiled softly as he remembered home and his past world. His line of thought ended when an idiot dressed in a samurai suit jumped in front of him. "Are you from Pallet Town?" asked the samurai. Naruto thought about it. He was from Konoha, but that place didn't exist. He had landed in Pallet Town when he had arrived, so technically he was born there in some twisted way. Yes, he was from Pallet Town. "Yes," replied Naruto slowly and made sure to drawl his voice out. He wasn't worried about the samurai attacking him or anything, but the idiot was screaming in a forest full of territorial Beedrills and many other bug Pokemons. "Great. I challenge you to a Pokemon battle," shouted the samurai and brought out a Pokeball. "Pinsir, come on out." "Okay then," replied Naruto. Vulpix took that as his cue and jumped in front of Naruto. "I'll just put you in your place and get to Viridian." "I won't lose to another Pallet trainer," stated the samurai. Pinsir used tackle. Lesson 1 Vulpix. "Never let yourself get hit unless I tell you otherwise," said Naruto to his fox. Naruto watched as Vulpix followed his order and dodged all of Pinsir's attack. The samurai, seeing his Pokemon fail to hit Vulpix, changed tactics. "Pinsir, use Bind to try and catch it," yelled the samurai. "Use Ember to keep Pinsir away," ordered Naruto. Vulpix immediately used Ember, creating a small circle of flames around it. Pinsir stopped due to its weakness against flames. It stood uncertain what to do next. "Use Ember again," ordered Naruto, taking advantage of the Pinsir's confusion and the samurai's lack of experience to figure a way for his Pinsir to win. Pinsir dropped unconscious from an unusually strong ball of Ember. The Pokemon was withdrawn. The samurai stared at Vulpix, then at another Pokeball that he had before, sighing. "You win. I don't think my Metapod can win against your Vulpix," said the samurai. Naruto smiled. "Well, thanks for warming up, Vulpix." The samurai slumped in defeat. "Come on, Vulpix," called Naruto, getting Vulpix to follow. Naruto looked at his wrists. He looked at the black wristbands that he had and felt the ones on his ankle. He always kept his body fit, and that meant carrying a large amount of weight on himself at all times. He couldn't let himself become weak just because the world didn't have anyone capable of beating him. He preferred to stay at tip-top shape no matter what. He looked at Vulpix and smiled. Maybe it was time he gave Vulpix a wristbands as well and teach him balance by having him jump from tree branch to tree branch. Naruto and Vulpix both exited Viridian City. Vulpix collapsed on the ground extremely tired. Naruto picked him up and laughed. Vulpix had 4 black bands on all his legs. "You'll be incredible strong in no time," said Naruto to the small fox. He released the seal on Vulpix, making the fox relax in his hands. He himself didn't want to carry the heavy fox, so he had released the seals. "Naruto," called a familiar voice again. Naruto looked toward the voice and spotted Gary. "Hey," greeted Naruto with a wave. He could already see why the kid had been expecting him. "Grandpa told me that you'd be here," said Gary. "He told me about you deciding to fight the gyms too." "So did you beat the city's gym leader?" asked Naruto curiously. Vulpix also stared curiously. "Of course, and I'm here for a rematch against your Vulpix," said Gary and pulled out a Pokeball. "Another one-on-one battle." Naruto looked at Vulpix, who was already tired from the training he put him through. "Well, Vulpix is unable to battle right now, but I could use another Pokemon just this one time since you waited just for us." Barry frowned and held his Pokeball in thought, debating whether he wanted to fight a possibly older and more experienced Pokemon. What Pokemon will that be? Naruto mentally thought about who he should bring out. He didn't have any regular Pokemon with him beside Vulpix. His whole team would make rare Pokemon collectors shit themselves. He hated going overboard on a newbie, but Vulpix was tired from training. He pulled out a blue Pokeball and tossed it out into the battleground. The Pokeball released a stream of red energy that quickly gathered. A Suicune appeared in between them. Its purple-colored cotton candy-like mane flowed as if the wind was constantly shifting it. It stood proudly and its eyes facing forward at Gary. Suicune had two white streamers for tails that flowed elegantly beside it. It had a diamond-like crest on its head and the wind started blowing from the north. Suicune's presence instantly made the atmosphere feel better. Barry stared at the legendary dog Pokemon in awe and shock before he smiled widely. He pulled out his Pokédex. He certainly hasn't expected much from Naruto, but his grandfather was right about him. Suicune, the Aurora Pokemon and one of the 3 legendary dog Pokemons, along with Entei and Raikou. It is a water-type Pokemon and is said to have been created with Entei and Raikou by Ho-Oh. "EV, come on out," said Gary, bringing out his EV. He eyed Suicune as an obstacle. He didn't think he would win, but he wasn't one to back down from a battle. "Just be prepared to lose," said Naruto. He looked at Vulpix. "And watch the battle carefully, Vulpix, because you'll be aiming to be as powerful Suicune. If I beat him there will be no doubt that EV and I are the best duo," proclaimed Gary. Naruto simply chuckled at the kid's enthusiasm. "EV use toxic," shouted Gary. A small brown Pokemon ran towards Suicune and spat out toxic, hoping to get Suicune poisoned. Suicune jumped aside, letting the toxic hit the ground. The ground sizzled from the toxic attack. "Suicune, use Tailwind," ordered Naruto. Suicune's white tail extended and whipped, hitting the air. The wind distorted slightly from Suicune's speed with its tails. EV found itself hit by a controlled wind that had hit it like a whip and rolled, hitting the ground with a thud. It struggled getting back up before falling back on the ground. Barry saw the difference in power quickly and withdrew EV and kept himself from feeling depressed for losing once again. He quickly reminded himself that his grandfather had warned him about Naruto's prowess in Pokemon battles. "Good try, EV, but Suicune is still out of our league." "I'm sure you can be a match for Suicune someday," said Naruto and lifted Vulpix up. "And Vulpix, he's getting stronger too." Vulpix yipped in agreement. "I'll beat you one day," proclaimed Gary and left again. "Glad I didn't crush his confidence," said Naruto to Vulpix, who was looking at Suicune. "Suicune, meet Vulpix," said Naruto, introducing the small fox. Suicune gave Vulpix a silent nod before returning to its Pokeball. "Don't worry about Suicune, Vulpix, all of those big bad legendary Pokemons have attitude," said Naruto to Vulpix with a laugh and started heading for Pewter City. Vulpix nodded. "How about I tell you how I caught Suicune," offered Naruto to Vulpix. Vulpix nodded. "Well, I was passing by a lake when I spotted him. He caught my interest as soon as I saw him. He tried to outrun me, of course, but I was simply too fast to outrun. After running for a day he finally stopped and confronted me. He was really arrogant at first since he planned his stop very well. He had stopped on top of a lake and so did I. He used the lake's water to his advantage and was beating me, but Kurama decided to wake up at that moment and had eagerly entered the battle. At first Suicune was shocked by Kurama's appearance and had decided to use his most powerful attacks on Kurama. Bubble Beams, Aurora Beam, Tailwind, Blizzard, and so much more. He had actually managed to hurt Kurama a little before he collapsed tired and defeated. The lake had turned into ice when the battle ended. I captured him then, but he was really pissed about it. He ignored orders, ran off for days sometime, but he always came back until slowly he just stuck along with me. Now he sleeps and sometime leaves to take long strolls," said Naruto, finishing his tale. He looked at Vulpix and nearly deadpanned upon realizing that his Pokemon had fallen asleep. "Oh well," muttered Naruto and entered Pewter City. Naruto had Vulpix recover in the Poke Center. "Your Vulpix had been quite tired but seems incredibly healthy for its age," said another Nurse Joy. Naruto took Vulpix's Pokeball and nodded. "Well, I think he's just naturally strong for his age." "Or it could be what you feed him," replied Nurse Joy with a suspicious gaze. "Berries mostly," replied Naruto. "Oh, that explains it. Your Vulpix must get all its required nutrient from the berries, replied Nurse Joy. I think I'm going to go, said Naruto and waved a goodbye to her. Nurse Joy reluctantly waved goodbye. Naruto stepped out of the Pokemon Center and headed off for the gym. Naruto entered the Pewter City gym. It looked like an official battlefield. He brought out Vulpix. Are you a challenger? Asked a young man that entered the gym from behind him. Naruto turned and smiled. Yes, are you the gym leader? Questioned Naruto. The guy was pretty tall with brown hair that stood on ends and his eyes were closed for some reason. I'm Brock the gym leader, replied Brock with a nod. Uzumaki Naruto, replied Naruto, I'm here for the gym badge. But I need to let my Pokemon stretch anyways, replied Brock with a confident tone. Great, so you accept? Asked Naruto. Brock nodded and led Naruto into the battle arena. Naruto looked toward his side and watched a mini look-alike of the gym leader walk to the sidelines and entering a safe zone. Hello, I'm Forrest and I'll be the referee, said the look-alike of the gym leader. The rules are simple, each trainer is allowed to use 2 Pokemon only. You may switch your Pokemon whenever you want during the battle. The battle ends when your Pokemons are unable to battle. Naruto nodded. Vulpix jumped in the battleground ready to battle. Onix go. Said Brock bringing out his Pokemon. Vulpix gulped at the intimidating size of the Onix. Relax Vulpix, you can beat it, said Naruto confidently. Your Vulpix does look strong, but it can't beat my Onix. It's at a disadvantage, said Brock. Naruto laughed. Don't worry about Vulpix. Brock nodded. Onix used Body Slam. Onix charged at Vulpix. It threw its body toward Vulpix who felt like a train was going to hit it. Jumped on Onix and hit it with Ember. Ordered Naruto. He never hesitated in a battle. He wasn't the type to freeze up and try to think of a plan, he was the type that created plans during the heat of battle. Vulpix followed orders and ran up toward Onix's face before releasing a ball of flame. The Ember was a direct hit that caused Onix to scream in either pain or rage. It thrashed trying to get Vulpix off, but the small fox balanced itself on Onix's head and keep on using Ember. Use Ember on your own tail Vulpix and then use Tail Whip on Onix's head, said Naruto. Vulpix's flash fire ability to not get hurt by flames was coming in handy. Vulpix ignited its many tails. The tails prepared to deliver painful lashing. Onix use Dig, said Brock ordering his Onix. Onix spun and threw its head ground first, forcing Vulpix to stop from using its fiery tail whip. Vulpix landed on the battleground waiting tensely for Onix to reappear. Vulpix, don't stay still. Keep moving, ordered Naruto. Vulpix started dashing across the battleground. Brock was caught off guard by the move, but he was even more surprised by Vulpix's speed. The small fox seemed to leave after images from spot to spot. Vulpix use extra sensory, ordered Naruto. He didn't see the battle moving on if Onix didn't rise back up. Vulpix nodded and stopped. It closed its eyes. Brock prepared to give an order to his Onix, but stopped in surprise when Onix thrashed out of the ground in pain. What was that? He asked confused. It's a psychic attack, replied Naruto. Vulpix hit Onix with Tail Whip now. Onix was still in pain from psychic attack and was an easy target for Vulpix. No. Yelled Brock in surprise as his Onix was pummeled with a direct attack that was reinforced with flames. Onix is unable to battle. The winner is Vulpix, said Brock's look-alike. Naruto smiled. Great job Vulpix. Brock had Onix return to its Pokeball. That's the first time I was defeated so cleverly, said Brock. He brought out another Pokeball. Geodude, come on out. Don't let him hit you Vulpix, warned Naruto. Geodude was a rock type and was super effective against a fire type. Vulpix nodded in acknowledgement. Geodude use Smackdown, said Brock. He was realizing that the opponent was someone very experienced in battle. At close, but avoid being hit, ordered Naruto. He watched the Geodude swing at Vulpix only to repeatedly miss. His own confidence making Vulpix fearless as it faced off against the experienced enemy. Grab Geodude's arm with your tails and use Ember. Shouted Naruto right when Geodude was preparing for another attack. Use Rollout to get out of the hold, shouted Brock quickly. The trainer was too clever. Vulpix was forced to let go when Geodude rolled its body rolled on the ground aimlessly. Ember. Ordered Naruto. The Geodude was still rolling. Geodude defense curl, shouted Brock, then use Rollout again. Geodude's curled up taking the attack head on. It was already resistant to the attack and easily ignored it before it started rolling and gathering speed as it neared Vulpix. Vulpix, make sure your tails are burning, ordered Naruto. Vulpix's tails lit once again from its own ember. It dodged Geodude's rollout as Geodude didn't give it time to retaliate. Geodude spun around and started rolling toward Vulpix again. Geodude, stop, warned Brock. It was about to be struck like a baseball. Geodude struggled to halt its movement, but that was all the opening that Vulpix needed and was upon Geodude quickly. Naruto smiled proudly at Vulpix, who had seen an opening and took it. Vulpix, use your strongest tail whip. Vulpix's tails glowed before it lashed out repeatedly on the rock Pokémon. Geodude's body landed hard on the battleground from the sudden impact that propelled it back. It struggled to stay floating before dropping unconscious. Geodude is unable to battle, the winner is Uzumaki Naruto, said Forrest in awe at having seen his brother lose. It was the first time he'd seen someone use their Pokémon so incredibly well before. Brock took back the Geodude into its Pokeball and brought out a badge. Congratulations, you earned the Boulder badge, said Brock and walked over to Naruto. Naruto took the badge and inspected it before showing it to Vulpix, who was thrilled to see it. Thanks Brock, said Naruto with a smile. Brock nods. I learned some new things from you. I've never battled someone so creative before. Well, that's because I'm awesome, replied Naruto with a grin before looking at his Vulpix and Vulpix's too. Brock's mood lightened up from Naruto's personality. Thanks, I have to get going now though, said Naruto and waved a goodbye to Brock and his brother. Vulpix yipped a goodbye before following Naruto. Mount Moon, commented Naruto as he stared at a dark tunnel entrance that would get him to the next gym badge. Cerulean City was just beyond the mountain. Vulpix trailed behind him, using his tails to light the path by burning his own tails with ember. Keep on practicing, Vulpix. Once you can ignite your tail on will, then you would have mastered controlling your tails. If your tails could heat up, then they can also burn, said Naruto to Vulpix, who nodded and kept trying to use the new move that they unintentionally created during their battle with Brock. They soon made it out of the cave's exit and into the light. Naruto spotted a sign that pointed to Cerulean City. There were extra writings on it. Ash is a loser. Naruto chuckled when he read it before moving on. He didn't know those two had a rivalry, but apparently they did. Looking down at his Vulpix, Naruto asked, "How's your tails?" Vulpix responded by closing its eyes and making the 6 tails it had light up into flames. Still too slow. Keep at it, replied Naruto. Vulpix nodded and went back to burning its tails and memorizing the feeling to recreate it without lighting its own tails with ember. Naruto smiled. Vulpix had already forgotten that it was wearing weights again. It had already adjusted to the weights and was quickly becoming very strong. I think it's time we had a break, suggested Naruto to Vulpix, who collapsed on the ground in relief. Naruto lifted Vulpix and chose a nice grassy clearing and unsealed several bowls for his Pokémons and bags of Pokémon food. Each bag had a name on it listing whose food it was. Naruto smiled at Vulpix. You're about to meet all of my Pokémons, Vulpix beside Kurama. Vulpix nodded and watched. Naruto brought out 5 Pokeballs. 3 blue ones, a green one and lastly a gray one. He tossed them all up in the air and releasing the Pokémons inside. Suicune, Lugia, Latios, Rayquaza and lastly Mewtwo. The 5 looked incredibly dangerous from the power they radiated. Suicune spotted the food and silently made its way to eat. It ignored the others beside giving a single glance at Lugia. Lugia stood on its legs and extended its neck to look at Vulpix with its piercing eyes before moving on to eat. The food bowl had yellow Pokémon food made especially for it due to its taste. Its white body and blue coloring making it a beautiful Pokémon to meet. Latios was a cheerful one and floated toward Naruto and Vulpix. Its wings were sharp and its blue eyes that were full of mischief. Its body seemed to melt with the air due to its blue color. Rayquaza simply sniffed the air and before moving toward a large bowl full of food. Its beautiful green and ancient body slithering effortlessly through the air. The ancient yellow and red lines on its body glowed with its movement. Lastly, Mewtwo stood on its legs much like a person would and eyed its surrounding. Its long tail moving slightly. It looked toward Naruto with narrowed eyes before looking at its food that had been placed on a small table. Mewtwo's eyes glowed before his food were levitated and floated toward it and eating it one by one. Everyone meet Vulpix, said Naruto introducing the small fox. They all looked at Vulpix before looking away uninterested. He's weak, stated Mewtwo having decided to speak. He was just an egg not long ago, replied Naruto with a smile. Mewtwo was upset from having lost a battle and getting captured. Are you no longer trying to get home? Questioned Mewtwo. Its eyes narrowed. Yeah, I sorta simply decided home is where your friends are, replied Naruto and scratched his head. Should have realized that before deciding to capturing us all, replied Mewtwo looking slightly upset. Naruto scratched his head in embarrassment. The reason he had captured all of them was because he had believed at least one of them had the ability to open dimensions and take him back home, but that idea had failed when he met a professor that had unknowingly informed him that no Pokémon existed that could do that. Not even Arceus, the creator Pokémon. Dialga and Palkia could open dimension, but just a specific one that they were created from. He had then gave up on returning home and started a new path. You aren't going to hold it against me, are you? asked Naruto. He had caught Mutwo not long ago, but Mutwo believes him to be some evil psychopath out for world domination. I'm Mew too, stated Mutwo angrily. You're a Mew. A bit different, but still a Mew, replied Naruto with a smile. Naruto found himself being pulled by Mutwo's psychic powers, but Naruto's eyes glowed before psychic pull stopped. Give it up, you can't beat a Mew, said Lugia as he telepathically broadcasted his thoughts. He didn't capture you for world domination, he doesn't need us for that, he could do it himself single-handedly if he chose to. Mutwo calmed and stared into Naruto's eyes. Those eyes, what are they? Naruto deactivated them and smiled. It's a secret. Mutwo glared before calming himself again. Where is the Nine Tails? Why do you want a rematch? Asked Naruto. Mutwo shook his head. He was sure he would still lose if he challenged the fox again. He's asleep. He was impressed with you know, stated Naruto with a large grin. Mutwo narrowed his eyes as he remembered his first loss ever. The crushing power of the Nine Tails against his enhanced psychic powers. Kurama isn't impressed easily, said Naruto casually. And I can imagine how hard it must have been to face him. You sound as if you faced him, replied Mutwo. Well, I did. I actually beat his butt. He won't admit it, of course, he's too proud, replied Naruto with a smile. Mutwo gave Naruto another look before returning to his food. He felt a bit more trust towards the blonde. Naruto turned looking for Vulpix and spotted Leishos carrying him around. At least Leishos was friendly. Yo Rayquaza, how you doing? Asked Naruto as he patted the giant snake-like Pokemon. Rayquaza gave Naruto a bland look before returning to his meal. A Pokemon of a few words, or 9 of all. You can at least talk to me. I know you can, I won't stop trying until you do, stated Naruto with a large smile. Rayquaza paused before looking back at Naruto and sighed. It gave him a single nod before returning to eat. Naruto laughed. Rayquaza was the easiest to break out of his shell, but also the most quietest. Naruto walked back toward Mutwo who was eating silently. Hey Mew, why did you attack me that day anyway? Questioned Naruto. He could ask now that Mew wasn't crazy with rage anymore. I was confused, replied Mutwo. It had been searching for a place to rest when it had spotted a Leishos being captured. It had quickly assumed that Leishos was forced, which had been partly true. Forced by a real persuasive conversation, which he realized later after being captured also. I'm glad you attacked, said Naruto to Mutwo. Otherwise I wouldn't have met you. Mutwo grunted in response. Mew, you're free to leave if you want, stated Naruto. He had actually given Mutwo the opportunity to leave after having been healed, but had refused. I told you I'll leave after I beat the pet fox of yours, replied Mutwo with his eyes glowing. Okay, replied Naruto with a smile. Mew liked him, otherwise he would have tried to crush his skull first instead of pulling him. It was a start at least. Well, that was part of the family, said Naruto cheerfully. Vulpix yipped in agreement, mainly due to Leisho's cheerful reaction to Vulpix. I have Kyogre and Groudon too, but they're asleep. I actually captured many legendaries, explained Naruto. When I first arrived and learned that some Pokemons can open up portals, I automatically assumed one of them could send me back home. So I started on a 2-year quest to capture all the Pokemons of legend, hoping that one could send me back home. Naruto stopped talking upon seeing Cerulean City. We can finally get the next badge, said Naruto before he stopped and looked at his Vulpix. Wait for it. Hey. Naruto spotted Gary coming toward them driving in a car. Hey. Greeted Naruto. Vulpix greeted him too. You ready? I'm definitely taking down your Vulpix this time, said Gary. He jumped out of the car. Naruto sighed. He was starting to see a pattern develop. Vulpix, why don't we put Gary back in his place, said Naruto to Vulpix. Vulpix yelped in agreement and jumped forward in anticipation. BV, come on out, yelled Gary. BV appeared battle ready. BV, start out with quick attack, ordered Gary. Naruto led EV near Vulpix. Vulpix used tail fire. What? Yelled Gary in surprise. Vulpix's tail ignited into flames and whipped it into EV. It was a devastating blow since EV ran into it. EV landed burned across the clearing. Gary ran to EV with a worried expression. What was that? Yelled Gary as he picked EV up and inspected the burns caused by Vulpix's tails. A new attack, of course. Your EV is the second to fall to it besides an Onyx, replied Naruto and picked Vulpix up. Since you entered to help EV, I guess the battle is over. Next time, Naruto, called Gary from the car that was already racing away. Naruto sighed. Next time would probably be the same. The kid will probably tell his grandfather about the new move too. This gym is supposed to specialize on water-type Pokemons. It's going to be hard, said Naruto to Vulpix as they neared the city. Naruto woke up. He yawned and looked around him. He was in the Poke Center of Cerulean City. He robotically went to the counter and had Vulpix returned to him from Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy tried to get his secret to having healthy and strong Pokemons and him dodging her questions. Things were starting out okay. Pet Trainer 2. The Cerulean gym looked perfect for water Pokemons, thought Naruto. Vulpix didn't like it upon sight. Naruto could already tell that the gym leaders would be using water Pokemons against Vulpix. Hopefully Vulpix wouldn't lose, otherwise Suicune would have to make another appearance. "Hey, are you a challenger?" called out a female voice from across the pool inside the gym. It was a beautiful redhead. "Yeah," replied Naruto with a smile. "Daisy, there's another one here," yelled the girl. She looked to be about Naruto's age. "It's your turn." "Another one?" said a blonde girl stepping in from another door from the side of the gym. The blonde girl cleared her throat and walked toward him. She lifted her hand to give him a handshake. "Hi, I'm Daisy and I'll be your opponent," said Daisy. Naruto took her hand and nodded. "I'm Naruto from Pallet Town and this is Vulpix," replied Naruto, introducing himself and Vulpix. The girls frowned when he said Pallet. Naruto guessed that Gary must have left an impression. "I'm Lily and I'll be the referee for this match," said Lily, shaking Naruto's hand. Naruto shook her hand. "That's great," replied Naruto. "The rules and conditions are simple. This battle will be of 2 Pokemons." Naruto tuned the girl out. She was beautiful, but she turned the rule and conditions into a speech. "Squirtle, go," yelled Daisy, throwing out the Pokeball. "Vulpix," called Naruto. Vulpix jumped on the small platforms in the pool. "It's obvious that you don't know how to battle. That was a bad move," said Daisy. Naruto ignored the comment. "Squirtle, use water gun," yelled Daisy. "Vulpix, don't let that hit you," ordered Naruto. Vulpix blurred from the platform it had been on to another. "Passed," said Daisy in surprised. "Squirtle, stay underwater and use it to your advantage." "Vulpix, use extrasensory and follow up with tail fire," ordered Naruto. It was just like with the Onyx from Pewter City again. Squirtle popped out of the water clutching its head. "A psychic attack," stated Daisy with a frown. She had clearly underestimated the Vulpix. "Dodge, don't let that attack hit you." Squirtle dodged the fiery tails, but it had still managed to scratch its cheek. It held its left cheek where a burn mark appeared. "I never seen that before," said Daisy, commenting on Vulpix's attack. "Squirtle, use water gun again." Vulpix dodged by moving on another platform. Daisy frowned. The Vulpix was simply too fast to catch. "Squirtle, counter with Aqua Tail," ordered Daisy. Naruto quickly realized that water would trump fire. "Vulpix, back away and use Ember." Vulpix jumped away from Squirtle, keeping its distance before throwing out balls of flames at Squirtle. "Use quick attack to continuously to run across the water and find an opening," ordered Naruto. Vulpix's body glowed before it shot out, running across water. Vulpix started circling Squirtle, who kept turning to keep an eye on his opponent. "That's incredible," exclaimed Lily from the sidelines. A Pokemon running on water was nearly unheard of. "Throw embers at Squirtle while running," ordered Naruto. Vulpix started tossing out balls of flame at Squirtle, who kept jumping side to dodge. "Water gun, Squirtle," yelled Daisy. Squirtle used water gun, but Vulpix didn't even have to dodge as it was moving too fast to target properly. Naruto saw Squirtle start getting disoriented from continuously spinning. "Vulpix, get him now." Vulpix dashed out of the circle and was upon Squirtle within a second. Squirtle moved to dodge, but all it managed was a drunk-like sidestep before it was hit and sent spinning into the gym's wall. Vulpix jumped back onto one of the platforms. Its breathing was sped up and it looked very tired from the exertion of running so fast for so long. "Squirtle is unable to battle. The winner is Vulpix," said Lily, doing her part. Despite being shocked, she managed to keep herself from sounding it. Daisy withdrew Squirtle, who had fainted from the attack. "Gyarados, let's show these 2 a lesson they won't forget," shouted Daisy and brought out a giant dragon-like Pokemon. Gyarados roared in agreement with his trainer. Gyarados' upper body was above the water and stared Vulpix down. "Use Aqua Tail," said Daisy, pointing at Vulpix. Gyarados' giant tail whipped out of the water and swiped on the platform that Vulpix had stood on. The attack missed, with Vulpix narrowly dodging and running on Gyarados' body. "At Vulpix, off you using Twister," ordered Daisy as she realized that Gyarados was in a bad position. Getting underwater to escape would force Vulpix to use extrasensory, which wouldn't be good for Gyarados. Vulpix jumped off as soon as Gyarados started spinning, creating a whirlwind around it. Water spun in with Gyarados' Twister. Naruto frowned. He could see that the Twister was already too big to dodge. "Vulpix, use Tail Fire and use your tails to lash out against the Twister as fast as you can," ordered Naruto softly. He knew Vulpix heard him despite having barely whispered it. It would greatly reduce the damage that the watery Twister would do. "Give it to them, Gyarados," said Daisy. Gyarados roared before letting the Twister rampage at Vulpix, whose tails were lit and extended ready for the attack. Vulpix's tails blurred when the twister reached it. The tails started attacking the wind and water attack. The room's temperature slowly increased as Vulpix's tails kept whipping wildly around it, hitting empty air within its tail's range. Even the platform was hit by Vulpix's tail, causing it to fracture little by little. The very wind blew away from Vulpix. Naruto smiled. He couldn't see anymore. The entire battlefield was covered in mist. He could feel Vulpix's exhausted presence. Vulpix had protected itself using rapid speed and power with its tails to keep the twister from hurting it. It worked, said Naruto to himself before deciding to take advantage of the mist. Vulpix, use extrasensory and follow up with the strongest tail fire you could use, ordered Naruto. Again he kept his voice low. He heard Vulpix yip to soft confirmation. The silence in the mist broke when Gyarados roared in agony. A psychic attack was proving to be effective against the giant water Pokémon. Gyarados! Yelled Daisy in concern. She was unsure of what to do when she didn't know what was happening within the mist. A rapid shuffling was heard from the mist next. It sounded as if a crowd had gathered clapping before Gyarados' head appeared from the heavy mist unconscious. Gyarados' head landed on one of the platforms unconscious with Vulpix jumping off of his head. Daisy stared shocked that the Vulpix had defeated two of her Pokémons before withdrawing Gyarados. I lost, she stated in disbelief. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto, said Lily with disbelief that they had lost. What? Shouted a voice from the gym's entrance. Naruto turned to see a indigo-haired beauty standing. He quickly deduced that they were sisters. Violet, said Lily in surprise before suddenly going into business mode. We need a badge to award him. Again, moaned Violet before walking up to Naruto. This is the third time. She reached Naruto and brought up her hand for a handshake. My name's Violet, said Violet introducing herself. Naruto, replied Naruto and shook her hand. Vulpix walked up next to him looking very tired from the battle. Violet nodded and brought out a small badge. Here you earned the Cascade badge. Definitely if your Vulpix somehow defeated Daisy's Gyarados. Naruto took the badge with a smile. Thanks. Violet patted Vulpix. First time I've met a Vulpix that can win a suicide battle. Naruto simply nodded. He wasn't sure whether it was a compliment or pointing out the absurdity of it. The three sisters left him with a solemn aura around them. That went well, commented Naruto, and took a look at the Cascade badge before leaving. He started channeling chakra into Vulpix to help it replenish the energy it had wasted battling the Squirtle and Gyarados. Vulpix wasn't really hurt, beside having been tremendously weakened by the water mix twister. Vulpix moaned softly in response. Naruto laughed and picked Vulpix up. Next is Vermilion City, said Naruto. Vulpix didn't bother to reply. We're going to train your Tails and your Ember. Flamethrower is too easy to counter. What we need is to work on your Ember until it's a giant fireball powerful enough to replace Flamethrower, said Naruto. Whenever a Pokémon uses Flamethrower, the flame covers its view, making it an easy target, not to mention that it has to continuously feed the flame, making it an easy attack to counter. Vulpix groaned in response again. Vulpix collapsed exhausted from training and groaned. Sukyun gave Vulpix a pitying look before offering Vulpix some of its purified water to the small fox. Naruto had decided to bring everyone out to eat. Vulpix gladly drank the water and felt instantly better. It had been weeks since he and Naruto had started traveling for Vermilion City. During the travel all he did was train and train. Naruto sat on Rayquaza talking to the dragon. Rayquaza mostly ignored him and ate, not bothering to reply. Latios was stretching its body and trying to start a conversation with Lugia, who was kind enough to talk with it. Mewtwo was practicing its psychic power by levitating rocks and moving them as if they were shields blocking invisible attacks. Hey Mew, called out Naruto. Mewtwo stopped its practice and looked at the blonde questioningly. How about a battle, huh? Rayquaza wants to stretch a bit and you want practice, said Naruto with a large grin. Mewtwo contemplated the idea before nodding. Rayquaza seemed like a formidable opponent. Rayquaza, who had been silent until then, moved. The wind shifted with just its movement and it started flying toward Mewtwo. Naruto jumped off of Rayquaza. Mew prepared his attacks. A shadow ball was created in his dog-like paws and threw it at Rayquaza. Rayquaza's snake-like body moved out of the way and opened its mouth. Energy gathered in Rayquaza's mouth before a beam was fired. Mew lifted his left paw. Boulders moved on their own accord and took the hyper beam, protecting him. Mew pushed the boulders at Rayquaza, who again dodged it all easily. Mew gathered energy into its paws again and threw another shadow ball. Rayquaza took the shadow ball head-on and hit it with a hyper beam. The shadow ball evaporated from the attack. The hyper beam continued toward Mew. Mewtwo's eyes glowed before pushing his hands against the empty air. An invisible wall stopped the hyper beam. Mewtwo rose off the ground and flew up in the sky, flying toward Rayquaza. Mew's eyes glowed when it used Fist Trick. Rayquaza screamed from the attack before it whipped its head at Mewtwo and unleashed another hyper beam. Mew took the attack head-on. The beam split from an invisible barrier that protected it, but it closed its eyes from the strain. Rayquaza flew for Mew using extreme speed. Rayquaza's green body hit Mew, sending it flying backward in the sky. It followed up with Thunder using a lightning attack that struck Mewtwo almost instantly. It wasn't giving Mewtwo time to recover. Mewtwo smashed into the ground before it rose back almost instantly. The surrounding area was crushed from Mew's immense psychic power before it flew back up. Mew held out its paw and created a shadow ball. The ball grew in power as he held it before he teleported right above Rayquaza, who was quick to try and dodge, but failed. The shadow ball hit Rayquaza, sending it falling back into the ground before it recovered and started flying back for round 2. It moved excitedly ready to continue. "Stop!" shouted Naruto, stopping them. Mewtwo looked ready to ignore Naruto, but Rayquaza stopped and started descending back to the ground. Mew followed unwillingly. "That was great, you two," said Naruto and turned serious suddenly, "but I need you all back in the Pokeballs. There is someone nearing us and he or she might have spotted you two battling. Why do you bother to hide us? We are not weak to worry about petty thieves," said Mewtwo, broadcasting his thoughts. "Well, no, but it'll give us headaches if greedy people find out about you all," replied Naruto. Mew nodded, consenting and disappearing back into its grey Pokeball. Rayquaza disappeared next, followed by Latios, Lugia and Suicune. Vulpix was left alone eating. Naruto sealed away the materials he had brought out and sat down relaxing. "Did you see them?" said an excited voice. "Of course I did, I caught a picture." The man continued talking back and forth to himself before stopping and staring at the picture. Rayquaza battling a mysterious Mew-like Pokémon. This man was Professor Bill, and he had spotted the battle from his lighthouse by chance. "I'm calling Professor Oak right now. It's such an incredible discovery," said Bill to himself. Naruto and Vulpix both neared Vermilion City. They stopped in anticipation, waiting to see if Gary would show as usual, but both relaxed when he didn't. "I think he doesn't want to lose so soon again. He'll probably pop up in the future with more challenges," said Naruto to Vulpix, who only nodded. Naruto entered Vermilion City with Vulpix, who looked relieved to finally stop the harsh training. "This place is supposed to be where we get the third badge," stated Naruto in a bored tone. Everything was simply too easy. He had known he'd make a great Pokémon trainer, but after 2 gyms he was starting to doubt the gym leaders were nothing more than average level at best. Naruto reached the Pokémon Center and entered. He took Vulpix to Nurse Joy. She looked to be the prettiest of them all. Naruto noticed that her assets were slightly bigger and her hair more soft-looking than the others, but didn't comment on it. "My sister called me the other day and said you might pass by," said Nurse Joy as she took his Vulpix. Naruto blinked. "Really?" Nurse Joy nodded with a smile and said, "Yes, just one look at your Vulpix, and I can tell that you're the one that defeated the Cerulean gym leader." "Well, I didn't know my Vulpix was that impressive," replied Naruto slowly. "Oh, but he is," she replied. She started combing her hand over Vulpix, who liked the attention. "What else do you know about Vulpix?" asked Naruto curiously. "That you and Vulpix used a new move on Gyarados in your last gym battle," replied Nurse Joy. "You must be quite the trainer." Naruto backed away slowly. "Well, I'm just lucky to be Vulpix's trainer." "So modest," replied Nurse Joy and left with Vulpix, who was melting in her hands. Naruto sighed. At least she didn't ask about his training method, but he was sure she'd be scanning Vulpix to see how healthy it was. Naruto and Vulpix entered Vermilion's gym. He had already seen injured Pokémons go back to the Poke Center after challenging the gym, and he had gotten excited. Naruto entered the gym and quickly spotted who he guessed was Lieutenant Surge. A bulky-like blonde man who had a Raichu out. Both already in a battlefield. "Hey, I'm here to kick your butt," announced Naruto with a grin. He brought Vulpix out, who growled in agreement. Lieutenant Surge took one look at him before looking at Raichu, then at Vulpix. "Well, you can try, son," replied Lieutenant Surge with a cocky grin. Raichu jumped forward ready for battle. "Just like that, no rules?" questioned Naruto. "If you beat my Raichu then you can have the Thunder Badge," said Lieutenant Surge and cracked his knuckles. Naruto grinned. "Vulpix use Ember." Raichu's eyes widened when instead of a small ball of flame, a ball of fiery white flames nearly hit it. The ball of flame incinerated the gym's wall into ashes. "Tone it down a bit, Vulpix," said Naruto. Vulpix only nodded. "That was a very impressive attack," said Lieutenant Surge, looking serious. "But it's not enough." Raichu ran toward Vulpix with lightning sparking off of it. "Raichu use takedown," said Lieutenant Surge. "Vulpix counter tail fire," ordered Naruto. Vulpix surprised Raichu by suddenly appearing in front of it. Raichu was sent hurtling back from the hit. "Vulpix use Inferno," ordered Naruto, not giving the Raichu a chance to recover. Vulpix's tail sprang up and it created blue flames before sending them hurling at Raichu, who was just getting up. "Raichu move," warned Lieutenant Surge. Raichu wasn't fast enough. Raichu let out a scream before dropping unconscious. Naruto frowned. Once again he was simply too strong. Naruto left the gym disappointed with the Thunder Badge. Raichu had been strong, but it had lacked agility and speed, which had made it an easy target. Naruto looked down at Vulpix and chuckled. Vulpix didn't even look winded. At least Kurama wouldn't give him a headache once he woke. Naruto sighed. The gyms were going to be collected easily. He could already tell. Maybe the elites would give him a challenge. At Trainer B. Naruto yawned as he walked through the forest of Saffron City. The fog was thick, which he dotted down as weird. Kind of strange, don't you think? Asked Naruto to his Vulpix. Vulpix, who had been on his shoulder, let out a soft yip in agreement. Saffron City has a gym, so that means that you'll battle again, stated Naruto with a grin. Bull. Replied Vulpix as it got fired up. Its intense training had brought up its confidence, and it helped that it had yet to lose a battle. During their travel they had faced many trainers who had been soundly defeated by Vulpix. Saffron City's gym would soon be defeated. Naruto kept walking through the thick fog with Vulpix. He stopped when he spotted a little girl in the mist. She held a large pokeball with her as if it was a ball. Naruto blinked at the figure and ignored the little girl. It was the mist, he told himself. Just the mist, said Naruto to Vulpix, who kept looking back at where the little girl was standing. Her figure turning into just shades as they kept moving. A childish laugh echoed through the mist. Just the wind, said Naruto to Vulpix. He of course knew that there was no wind at all. Vulpix looked creeped out and stuck closely to Naruto's shoulder. Naruto walked past a shadowy figure of a girl. He stopped and looked at the trees surrounding them before looking at the small shadowy girl. I think I'm lost, deadpanned Naruto and took out his Pokédex. It had a map. Naruto checked the Pokédex and frowned as the screen displayed only static. Vulpix now looked thoroughly frightened. I must have gotten it wet, said Naruto, calming Vulpix down. He put away the Pokédex and kept walking. Naruto stopped walking after having walked past the same tree 8 times already. I think it's safe to say that I need to climb a tree, stated Naruto to Vulpix. Naruto ignored the creepy little girl that was laughing in the mist and walked upward on the tree with just his feet. He felt a small satisfaction when the creepy laughing stopped. Naruto checked from the top of the tree before climbing down by just walking down. Vulpix looked disappointed at not having seen anything but the fog from atop of the tree. Don't worry, we'll get there even if it takes forever, comforted Naruto with a grin. Vulpix didn't look too happy, but consented anyways. Naruto passed the same creepy little girl again. She was bouncing the Pokeball from within the mist. He could see her figure moving. Enough. Naruto stomped his feet, having had enough. He knew the girl wasn't real, he didn't feel any chakra toward her, meaning she was a puppet that was being controlled from a long distance. The ground cracked. Naruto looked toward the mysterious figure. I tried to ignore you, but you obviously want trouble, lady. He brought out the best Pokémon for the situation, someone who was better at the opposing enemy who was using Psychic. It had to be Psychic, since not many could mess with his sense of direction so easily. He couldn't be fooled, but the most Psychic could do was fuck with his sense of direction. You come out and disperse everything here, ordered Naruto. Mutwo appeared, its Pokeball. Its eyes narrowed menacingly at the mist. With a wave of its hand the mist dispersed immediately and faded, leaving them in broad daylight. Mew looked satisfied. Naruto eyed the little girl that could now be seen clearly. He had been right, it was a puppet. The girl ran away, disappearing into the forest. Mew stood silently staring at the direction the puppet had ran before returning to its Pokeball. Nothing we can't handle, said Naruto to Vulpix. Vulpix responded by clinging to Naruto's neck with more enthusiasm. Stupid puppet, commented Naruto as he arrived at Saffron City. He could have been there hours earlier had the creepy girl not messed with him. Naruto spotted a strange-looking man with a brown beard walking toward them. The man looked to be hiding his face with his hat lowered slightly. Sir, do you happen to know where the gym here is? Asked Naruto and got in the man's path. Vulpix yipped in agreement. The man paused and seemed to jerk before nodding. I wouldn't advise battling against Sabrina, replied the man and started leading anyway. Naruto followed with a grin. Don't worry, old man. Beating the gym will be a piece of cake. The old guy stopped in front of a large building which was the gym. You've been warned, said the old man and left. Naruto ignored the creepy guy and entered the gym. The same guy that had just walked away from them was inside waiting, but he was dressed differently. Naruto figured it must have been Obra's work. Abraham could teleport along with several other Pokémons. I'm here to challenge the gym leader, stated Naruto. He decided to humor the man's disguise. Naruto was led to the gym leader and spotted the little girl sitting in a chair. He sighed as he realized why everything was so creepy. The guide left quickly, leaving him alone with the gym leader. The puppeteer was revealed. A full-grown woman sat holding the doll, which in turn held a Pokeball. The woman's hair were dark green, almost black. "I am Sabrina, the gym leader," said Sabrina. "Naruto," replied Naruto blandly and looked at the doll. Vulpix clung to his neck again. "I will accept your challenge, but should you lose you will have to play with me," stated Sabrina. Her eyes glowed as she said that. Naruto blinked very slowly. He then looked to Vulpix, who too had blinked owlishly. "Look lady, if I lose I'll buy you a doll or something," replied Naruto with a different offer. In response, Sabrina released her Pokemon. It was a bra. It looked childish as it sat on its behind on the floor. Naruto was about to tell Vulpix to get ready, but he stopped when Mutwo chose to make an appearance. It appeared before Naruto facing Sabrina and a bra. "I will face the psychic trainer," stated Mew, broadcasting its thoughts. Naruto grinned. "If you want to, I don't see a reason not to agree." Vulpix looked glad it wouldn't have to battle such a creepy lady. Mutwo nodded and stared down a bra. "Quite a powerful Pokemon you have there," said Sabrina's etchy voice. "Thanks," replied Naruto. "The bra use psychic," ordered Sabrina. The bra tried to do so, but Mew moved his hands toward a bra and it found itself being smashed into the walls by Mutwo's own psychic. The bra fell to the ground unconscious. Sabrina remained silent as she stared at her unconscious bra. The doll fell from her lap and she grabbed a bra's pokeball, rushing to its aid. She picked a bra up and left the room. She dropped something on the ground in her haste to leave. "Pathetic," stated Mutwo and returned to its pokeball. Naruto picked up the gym badge that Sabrina had dropped inside. That was one of the easiest yet. "Come on Vulpix, let's go," said Naruto and left the gym disappointed. They didn't even need the Pokécenter to help heal his Pokemon. A strange man stood outside crying in happiness. Naruto sped up and passed the man. The entire place was just too creepy. "I'm glad we're out of there," said Naruto with a smile as they exited civilization and into the wilderness, heading for the next gym. Vulpix didn't reply. Instead, it struggled to keep up with his pace. Vulpix was once again weight training, carrying enough weight to make a Machamp hesitate to even try it. Naruto looked down at Vulpix with a smile. "Sorry pal, but we have to double your training because you skipped out on the battle," Naruto said, even if it was Mew's fault. Vulpix gritted its teeth before smiling viciously. With a burst of effort it jumped onto his shoulders. Naruto collapsed onto the ground from the sudden weight on him. He got up, patting the dirt off of him, and looked at Vulpix, who looked amused. Naruto only chuckled and motioned for Vulpix to keep walking. It looked happier to have released its frustration on him. "Didn't think fox were actually mischievous as legends say," commented Naruto to Vulpix. Vulpix didn't reply and instead focused on its steps. "This looks like a great place to train," said Naruto and stopped walking through the forest trail. He looked at a large pile of rocks and smiled at Vulpix. Vulpix felt his senses tell him that Naruto was going to put him through another intense training with his weights on. "Go over there Vulpix," said Naruto, pointing to a small clearing. Naruto himself walked next to the pile of hand-sized rocks and picked up a handful. Vulpix gulped as it saw Naruto grin. "Dodge or deflect them with your tails," ordered Naruto. Naruto swung his hands and threw 3 directly at Vulpix. 3 more followed almost simultaneously. Vulpix's tails cut right through the first 3, but the second was just too fast to block and so dodged only to see 3 more shooting toward it. Vulpix resorted to dodging from place to place, using all its speed just to keep from being pebbled down. It had no doubt that the rocks would hurt should it hit. Naruto cheered for Vulpix as he kept increasing the speed of his throws steadily. Vulpix was quickly becoming incredibly fast and clever with its 6 tails. Naruto had started getting Vulpix to use its tails more. He knew firsthand how dangerous tails can be, since Kurama was incredibly clever with them. "You can do it Vulpix," cheered Naruto as he started throwing another wave of rocks at Vulpix. Cerulean City. After days of walking, Naruto finally arrived at Cerulean City. He had thought Gary might show up to challenge him again, but that didn't happen. Naruto walked with Vulpix walking beside him. He sniffed the air when he smelled something disgusting. "Pluom," said a soft voice. Naruto looked down to his feet and spotted a short plants-like Pokemon walking past him. Its mouth had a drool as if it was half asleep. "What a sad little Pokemon," commented Naruto as he watched it turn the street and disappear. That thing needed a bath. Vulpix had his nose covered and was struggling with watery eyes. "I know what we should do Vulpix," said Naruto as he thought of something that would make them both forget the Pokemon. "Let's go eat some ramen. It's been a long time since I had my fix." Vulpix brightened up at the idea of food and immediately grew excited. Vulpix climbed his shoulder with its 6 tails waving elegantly. The tails were no longer curled together like a bun, but rather each waved separately from one another. A result of the continuous training with it. Naruto pulled out the Pokédex and checked to see if the professor had added what he had complained about. He grinned when the Pokédex recommended a restaurant near him. "Come on," said Naruto and ran for the restaurant. Naruto patted his stomach and laid back relaxed in his chair. Vulpix was still eating from his bowl. Naruto laid his head in content and smiled at the sight of so many bowls stacked together in front of him. The food had been great, despite them not having had ramen. He would have thrown a tantrum, but he had outgrown his childish personality. The waitress came to his table and struggled with the plates before managing to take them all. Naruto grinned as he felt refreshed. Vulpix finished his food and looked just about ready for a nap. The waitress came back with the bill. "Here's your bill, sir," she said. She looked happy to be finally charging him. Naruto could already tell that he would have to pay a lot. He painstakingly brought out the money and paid the vast amount once he saw the bill. "So this is the gym," said Naruto. The building was quite impressive. It seemed more like a community for kids though. It probably was since he heard that the gym leader taught kids and adults educational things. Vulpix's tails waved and sat down next to him waiting for him to find the gym leader. It looked determined to earn the next badge. Naruto entered determined and stopped as soon as he saw a group of girls inside laughing and talking to one another. He wondered if he was in the right gym, it could be gymnastic for all he knew. "Excuse me, miss," said Naruto politely to one of the girl passing by. "Yes," she said. "Can you tell me where the gym leader here is?" he asked uncertainly. The girl smiled. "Sure, she's right over here." She started leading him to the gym leader. She eventually brought him to an open battlefield that was filled with people surrounding a dark blue hair woman. The battle room was being used as a classroom. Naruto let his guide go talk to the gym leader. The gym leader stopped the class after having a short conversation with his guide. "Class, we have a challenger today. It'll be a great opportunity for you all to see firsthand how a battle goes," she announced and looked toward him. "Hello, I'm Erika, the gym leader here. I accept your challenge," she said loudly for everyone within the battle room to hear. "Naruto Uzumaki," said Naruto introducing himself. He looked at Vulpix. "And this is Vulpix." Erika nodded with a smile and turned to her class. "Everyone please step out to the safety lines." Naruto stepped back away from the gym leader and stood opposite of her. Once the ground was clear, he prepared to battle her. "Vulpix, let's see how her Pokémons measure up to you," said Naruto. Vulpix jumped in front of Naruto as usual and got into a battle stance that was ready to move at any second. "Angela, I choose you," said Erika. She threw out her Pokeball and brought out a blue seaweed-covered like Pokémon. "I will be the referee for this match," said one of Erika's friend. "The battle will consist of 3 Pokémons. The battle ends when one side no longer has a Pokémon that can battle. As the challenger, you make the first move," said Erika. "Go Vulpix," ordered Naruto. Vulpix figure disappeared. The ground it had stood on dispersing from pressure. There were 3 flicker-like steps on the battleground that instantly reached Angela. The air seemed to repulse from the ground where Vulpix had passed. A flickery body appeared up in the air just above Tangela. The shadow casted over Tangela, getting its attention. Before Tangela or its trainer could react, Vulpix was in the air above it and had flames burning all over itself. Tangela moved to get away, but it hardly moved an inch before Vulpix attacked. Flames burst everywhere on Vulpix and it grew around it before it was concentrated toward Vulpix's mouth. Vulpix unleashed hell upon Tangela. A stream of burning hot flames hit Tangela as if the sky itself had spewed flames on it from above. It would have resembled apocalypse. Tangela's figure stood inside the streaming flame and screamed for all to hear. The ground grew charcoal black as the flames continued. The battle room was instantly warm and heating up. Everyone watching had backed further away when they realized the flames were hot enough to give them blisters. The flames died out when Vulpix stopped its attack. Tangela was revealed looking charred. Its previously green-blue color was a shen black. It stood on its feet almost as if it had been petrified. Erika stood silent and stared at her Tangela in shock. It might as well have been dead, but the small moving of its body proved otherwise. It was still breathing and would die soon if it wasn't treated. She withdrew her Tangela and looked at Vulpix, who didn't look even the slightest bit tired from having used such a powerful attack. She was pretty sure the fire attack she just witnessed blast burn. Her Tangela never stood a chance. To use such a powerful move and remain unfazed, it meant that the user would have to be strong. She brought out her second Pokeball, but chose not to bring out Weepinbell or Bloom. She could see the difference in power. Vulpix had been nothing but a sudden blur to her when it had attacked. "I surrender," she said out loud. She felt herself feel so weak along with her Pokémons. She never been so outclassed before. Hot tears streamed down her face. "The winner is Naruto from Pallet Town," said the female referee. Naruto had Vulpix return to its Pokeball. The intense training had greatly paid off. Naruto felt bad for humiliating the gym leader in front of her own people, but he wasn't one to hold back. Besides, if she truly felt humiliated, she would work hard and make sure it never happens again. "Yes, I got the rainbow badge," said Naruto to the comlink. He kept from saying how bad he felt about beating the gym leader. Professor Oak was on the other side asking useless questions. Vulpix had perched himself on Naruto's shoulder and listening to the conversation. "That's good," said Professor Oak and blinked. "Oh, I almost forgot." "Forget what?" asked Naruto. Professor Oak ran out of the computer screen and quickly came back with a single Pokeball. "A Pokeball," stated Naruto and stared at it. It had a small fire emblem on it. "I got this Pokémon from a colleague of mine. Professor Elm," explained Professor Oak with a smile. "I was meaning to give it to either Ash or Gary, but they wouldn't be able to handle it." "Handle it?" repeated Naruto. "Well?" asked Vulpix along with Naruto. "Well, yes," replied Professor Oak and brought the Pokémon out. Professor Oak immediately fell over. The Pokémon had jumped onto his face and was burning him. He quickly returned it back to its Pokeball. Professor Oak ran off with burning hair, leaving the computer screen again. Several minutes went by before Professor Oak returned with wet hair, as if he had just fell into a pool of water. "Sorry about that. Had to jump into a lake," said Professor Oak, referring to his backyard pond. Naruto nodded. "That was a Cyndaquil, wasn't it?" Oak straightened himself up and nodded. "As you can see, it's rough around the edge." "Yeah," drawled out Naruto as he started seeing where things were going. "So how about it?" asked Professor Oak. "How about what?" replied Naruto. He made himself look clueless. "Don't you want him? He'll be a great addition to your team, he's still a baby and could be positively influenced," said Professor Oak and waving the Pokeball in front of the com. Naruto thought about it. He couldn't carry more than 6 Pokémons, meaning if he took Cyndaquil he'd have to leave someone behind. Latios wouldn't take being left behind easy, or Mutwo despite its attitude, including Lugia. Meaning only Suicune would be okay with it, but Rayquaza likes Suicune too much to part with the Aurora Pokémon, since it basically like Auroras, meaning it naturally likes Suicune because of the nice atmosphere Suicune produces. Naruto rubbed his temple. If Rayquaza left then he would have an empty slot. He sighed. "I'll send Rayquaza and Suicune to you," replied Naruto to Professor Oak. "Great," replied Professor Oak. Naruto placed Rayquaza and Suicune's Pokeball into the Pokeball holder next to the com and watched it disappear like a stream of red light. A single Pokeball came to him. It had the fire emblem on it. Naruto pocketed the Pokeball. "I've been meaning to tell you something else," said Professor Oak from the com. He held Rayquaza's and Suicune's Pokeball in his hand. "Ask away," mumbled Naruto. Vulpix's tails patted his head. "Bill called me the other day and showed me a picture of Rayquaza and Mutwo battling," said Professor Oak and bringing out the picture. "I take it he's a friend of yours?" questioned Naruto. If the professor said no, then Bill's a deadman for having taken pictures of his Pokémons. "Yes, don't worry, I told him to keep what happened to himself," said Professor Oak. He put away the picture and then waved a goodbye. The computer went blank before Naruto could ask anything. Naruto's side checked his map on the Pokédex. The next gym was Fuchsia Gym. It was located somewhere at Fuchsia City. "This looks like a nice place to rest," said Naruto. He sat down on soft green grass. Vulpix jumped off his shoulder and walked to the river next to them. Vulpix drank the water. Naruto brought out Lugia, Latios and Mew. Latios as usual floated happily over to Vulpix and started drinking water. It was such a cheerful Pokémon by nature. Lugia curled itself up on the grass and bathed in the sunlight. It cocked its head over looking for Rayquaza and Suicune upon realizing they weren't there. Mew sat down on the grass much like a person would and started meditating. "Where's Suicune and Rayquaza?" asked Lugia telepathically. Naruto smiled at Lugia. "I sent them over to Professor Oak. Don't worry, you'll see them again." Lugia stretched and curled itself again before simply laying relaxed. It no longer cared about anything else once it got its answer. Naruto brought out Cyndaquil's Pokeball and stared at it. Mutwo opened its eyes to look at the Pokeball. "Who is that?" asked Mutwo. Its eyes looking sharp. It expected a powerful Pokémon at least. Naruto smiled and opened the Pokeball. A stream of red beam came out and took shape. Cyndaquil stood upright and doing a 360 before jumping straight at Naruto. Its back blazed with red flames that were meant to cause harm. Before it could even touch him, it stopped in mid-air by Mew's psychic. It floated in the air and tried to free itself, but failed. Lugia, Latios and Vulpix took notice of Cyndaquil now. Cyndaquil started going crazy. It opened its mouth and started firing flames everywhere it could in an attempt to free itself from psychic. "Hold him until he cools down," said Naruto to Mutwo. Cyndaquil didn't look like it was ready to calm down and talk to him anytime soon. Mutwo complied. Cyndaquil kept going until its once impressive flamethrower was nothing more than a puff of black smoke. It was out of energy. Lugia grew amused by Cyndaquil and laughed. Its chirpy voice melodious to everyone. Mutwo stopped its psychic move and dropped Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil looked at Mutwo and Lugia with burning eyes that wanted nothing more than to burn them. Cyndaquil charged at Lugia. It was obviously enraged by Lugia's amusement to its situation. Cyndaquil charged with its small fists ready to punch Lugia. Its right fist gathered flame. Lugia let Cyndaquil approach. It didn't even bother stopping the punch as it connected. A small burst of flame erupted from the punch on Lugia's belly. Naruto watched amused. A fire punch was impressive, but against Lugia it meant nothing more than a tickle. Cyndaquil looked pleased to have hit but was surprised when Lugia laughed again. It grew angry again with a tick mark on its small head. This time it lifted its left arm. Lightning sparked off from its fist. "A thunder punch," said Naruto to himself. Cyndaquil was pretty impressive for a baby. Lugia again watched amused as Cyndaquil's small fist connected with its stomach. Once again the attack did nothing. This enraged Cyndaquil and it started punching Lugia repeatedly. Leishos floated over behind it. Leishos tried to calm it but it turned and smacked Leishos in the face. A small audible clap was heard silencing everything. Naruto was surprised to see Leishos slowly gain a tick mark on its forehead. Leishos never lost its temper but he supposed there was a first for everything. Leishos' left hand gathered power. It was Crush Claw. Cyndaquil bravely stepped up lifting its right arm and forming a claw made of energy. Naruto realized why Cyndaquil knew all the advanced attacks it did. As Professor Oak has said, it was still very susceptible to a person's influence or a Pokemon's. Cyndaquil must have already met a Pokemon that knew Thunder and Fire Punch. Now it just learned Crush Claw as well. Naruto moved. He appeared behind Cyndaquil in an instant and bonked Cyndaquil's head breaking its concentration. The claw disappeared. "Calm down Cyndaquil," said Naruto with a smile. Cyndaquil had only been a step away from getting creamed. It was a good thing that Lugia was mild-mannered when it came to Pokemons, otherwise it would have been creamed from the beginning. Cyndaquil didn't quite think it was ready to calm and attacked with a thunder punch. Naruto easily dodged the attack. Cyndaquil opened its mouth and exhaled flames at him. It had finally recovered enough of its flames to use it again. Naruto dodged it too. Before Cyndaquil could continue it was hit by fiery red flames charring it. Cyndaquil shook off the burns. It was immune to fire-type attacks due to its ability Flash Fire. Vulpix stood behind it looking angry. Cyndaquil turned to face Vulpix. It took on a betrayal-like expression clutching its heart as it realized who had attacked it. It simply couldn't believe a fellow fire-type had attacked it. It opened its mouth and yelled. The flames on its back grew in size, making the grass below it start to burn. The sudden blaze of flames warmed the air. Cyndaquil turned and gave a murderous look at everyone. It squealed its name out in rage and moving its fist left and right. Then the flames died out and it continued yelling its name for several more seconds and promptly started crying its eyes out. Naruto's sweat dropped at the sudden change along with everyone else. Vulpix neared Cyndaquil and patted it on the head with one of his tails. Cyndaquil only cried harder making Vulpix unsure what to do. Can you translate what Cyndaquil is saying?" asked Naruto to Mutwo who stood watching the baby flame Pokemon. Mew looked away and turned to the river. "It misses its birthplace." "Wasn't that a lab?" questioned Naruto. Professor Oak said he had gotten Cyndaquil from Professor Elm, so that meant it was hatched by that professor. "I don't see why it would want to return to the lab," replied Mutwo. He had bad experiences with labs. Naruto rubbed his head as he realized what Mew was saying. "Not all labs are what you experienced." Mew didn't reply. "Cyndaquil Professor Elm wanted you to experience the outside world," said Naruto as he went with the best answer he could think of. "He didn't want you to stay cooped up in the lab, so he sent you to see the world." Cyndaquil was giving him its full attention and sniffling. It was being babyish, thought Naruto. "He wants you to see what it's like out here. Battle, swim, and battle," repeated Naruto uncertainly. Fortunately Cyndaquil seemed to perk up and suddenly stood confidently again. The flames on its back growing with its confidence. But Cyndaquil calmed Lugia lost interest and went back to sunbathing. Leishos excitedly greeted Cyndaquil again. This time Cyndaquil was calmed enough not to anger the bird and managed a silent nod. Vulpix had left and was curiously testing the river with its tails. Naruto sat relaxing in the sun. He'd have other times to bond with Cyndaquil after Cyndaquil started getting used to his team. At least the little mouse Pokemon was interesting. Full of bravado that was for sure and a quick learner if what he saw was correct. He closed his eyes. If he went directly to Fuchsia City's gym badge along with the others he'd be months ahead of everyone. He should stay and train Cyndaquil at least until before challenging Fuchsia City's gym. He already had 5 badges. He only needed Fuchsia's and Cinnabar Island's badge, then he'd just go directly to Viridian to see if that gym opens up. Naruto smiled as he thought of where to go back to. Vermilion City seemed like a nice place. Plus he could work on building a relationship with Cyndaquil. Naruto had decided to use Hierarchin to travel to Vermilion City quick since he didn't feel like walking back through a trail he already passed. He usually didn't use hierarchin, but he was starting to feel hungry in the middle of a forest and he had forgot to restock when he headed back to Vermilion. Now he sat in a restaurant eating curries. Vulpix as usual was eating next to him. Vulpix had gotten a free steak out of the waitress. The waitress took pictures of Vulpix and called him adorable and incredibly cute before giving him a free steak for being cute. "You're lucky you know," said Naruto to Vulpix. Not only was Vulpix strong, but downright plushy looking when it wanted to. Vulpix didn't comment and slowly ate its steak. Naruto paid for their meal and headed toward the gym. Talked to the gym leader if he wanted to battle Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil would probably lose, but it would be a great first battle. "No," said Lieutenant Surge. "Eh?" yelled Naruto back in surprise that he had been turned down for a battle. Lieutenant Surge straightened his posture and explained, "Last time I was beaten too easy for my liking, and so I'm simply deciding not to accept the challenges of someone who already beaten me." "That kind of ruins what I planned," mumbled Naruto. Vulpix who was standing next to him yipped sadly in agreement. Lieutenant Surge shrugged and left them alone at the entrance of the gym. Naruto was disappointed, but instantly cheered up again when he looked out into the sea and saw the SS overseas travelers. He'd just have to challenge them with Cyndaquil and have it gain some fighting experience. Naruto laid flat on the floor of the harbor with Cyndaquil standing on him proudly. None of the people he had challenged been able to even put a scratch on Cyndaquil. Now Cyndaquil might develop a big head unless he had it battle with one of his own Pokémons. Preferably Vulpix to keep it fair. Vulpix stood several feet away stretched out and lazily watching them. Naruto stood up abruptly causing Cyndaquil to fall, but getting caught by Naruto. "Let's go back to Lieutenant Surge," said Naruto. Maybe he could convince the guy to battle them. Vulpix hopped onto his shoulder. Cyndaquil did the same copying its senior. It was already becoming friendly to them, but still extremely cocky. Naruto didn't really care that his shoulder was crowded. Cyndaquil weighed next to nothing compared to Vulpix who was carrying the equivalent weight of 2 Snorlax. Naruto reached Lieutenant Surge's gym and stopped as he saw a green grass type looking Pokémon being berated by its trainer for losing against the gym leader. "I have no use for weak Pokémons," stated the trainer and took out a Pokeball and split it in half. He dropped it on the ground and left. Naruto was pretty sure he had seen the guy when the SSN had docked. The trainer was a foreigner, meaning the Pokémon was foreign and was just tossed away for losing. Naruto rubbed his temple as he stared at the grass Pokémon that stood silent in shock, looking at the direction its trainer had gone. Should he capture it? It wouldn't be easy especially for a Pokémon that was just dumped. Naruto pulled out a Pokeball. The Pokémon would no doubt go crazy if he let it know he wanted to capture it. Better rude and apologize later than apologize and get rude later, or was it something else? Deciding not to ponder on it, Naruto threw the Pokeball at the Pokémon. It was caught by surprise and was instantly pulled in the Pokeball. The ball beeped instantly having captured it. Naruto sighed. He had just wasted a Master Ball, maybe he should have just battled it, but then it would hate his gut more for physically reminding it that it was weak in battle. Cyndaquil rushed over to the Pokeball and picked it up much like a trainee would and said its own name confidently. Naruto could almost see subtitles translating what it said. Subtitles equals "I caught someone." Naruto snatched the Pokeball from Cyndaquil who looked disappointed. Naruto sighed and had Cyndaquil return. The last thing he wanted was for Cyndaquil to open its confident mouth to say something confidently hurtful. "So how do we go about this?" said Naruto to Vulpix. Vulpix started speaking long strings of its name and short vowels with its hands moving. "I think you lost me after Vul," said Naruto after Vulpix finished talking. Vulpix grew a tick mark and lit one of its tails on fire before promptly slapping him. "Ouch!" cried Naruto and sighed as the small burn healed. He ignored the gym he had been meaning to go to and turned heading for the forest. He would train and get everyone in on it. He would let his new Pokémon warm up to him if it wanted to or not. An unknown forest. Vulpix unleashed a powerful blast burn against an unsuspecting rock that was shaped to look like Lieutenant Surge. The flames stopped as soon as it came. They had started a grudge ever since they were turned down for battle. "That was great, Vulpix," shouted Naruto. He was spending some quality time with them. Doing amusing things like jumping off a cliff with your arms tied up and trust that someone will save you. It was a trust thing to build teamwork called the leap of faith, though it had its dangers like when Mew almost didn't save him using Psychic. Cyndaquil stood nearby and proudly applauded for Vulpix. Lugia let out a soft thrilling sound to show it was impressed. The blast burn had been incredibly deadly, having turned the rock into liquid magma. Mewtwo didn't comment and simply watched. Latios was congratulating Vulpix on its performance. It happily held Vulpix in midair while spinning. The newest addition, a young Snivy, sat beside Mewtwo and trying to look uninterested but was unable to. The power Vulpix had demonstrated left it curious the training Naruto used for Vulpix. It had made great progress at socializing with them since being rudely captured, but was still very volatile when Naruto tried to talk to it or do anything friendly toward it. "Okay, everyone come here," called Naruto. He stood in an open space with a smile on his face. Vulpix was first to him, followed by Cyndaquil, Latios, Lugia, Mutwo and finally their newest member after some hesitation. Naruto grinned at them all and held out a palm-sized black sphere. He showed it to each of them and walked to each, tapping them on their foreheads with his other hand. Snivy snapped at him for touching its forehead, but Naruto only smiled and continued. A small seal formed on each of them. The seal on your foreheads won't let any of you move past 8 meters away from each other. If you move past it, you'll be paralyzed. It's a one-time seal, so it'll disappear after training, explained Naruto, and then held out the black sphere again. I will use these to attack you all, and you'll have to dodge them without separating. Cyndaquil confidently jumped on top of Latios with its hands up, proclaiming future victory. Latios agreed with a musical pitch of its voice. Vulpix hopped on Lugia, realizing that what Cyndaquil had done was clever. It would make staying together easier. The Snivy hopped onto Mew's shoulder uncertainly. Mew didn't mind and waited patiently for Naruto to continue. I'll do my best to separate you all, so you gotta give it your best, shouted Naruto. He quickly pulled out more spheres and got ready. I have this place covered in illusion a mile wide, so feel free to move as far as you like. In response, Latios shot off into the sky, taking the lead and forcing the others to follow. Lugia turned its head to look behind and fired off an arrow blast at the black spheres that Naruto had thrown. This protected the group only once, but Naruto was already below them and threw 3 more as if they were bullets. The spheres were aimed at Vulpix, Cyndaquil and their newest member. Mew moved directly in the path of the spheres along with its partner. It wanted to make its partner do something instead of becoming dead weight. The spheres were knocked out of the air by vine whips. Great reaction, Snivy, cheered Naruto, and 3 more spheres. Snivy closed its eyes, feeling unsure of its new trainer. He had been always cheerful and happy towards it for several weeks now, a complete opposite to its previous trainer. Mew used Psychic on the incoming spheres, but its power had little effect beside changing the direction of the spheres. Nice try, Mew, shouted Naruto with a grin and jumped on from tree to tree and getting even closer. The spheres are resistant against Psychic. Mutwo narrowed its eyes and aligned itself with the others in the air. They were a perfect triangle moving in sync. Time to get serious, shouted Naruto and did a single hand seal. All 6 Pokémons felt a sudden increase of weights. The seal is also a gravity seal. You now weigh 3 times your own weight. It won't feel much now, but it'll quickly wear you out, explained Naruto and started throwing more spheres at them, and quicker than before at a more rapid rate. Things quickly got complicated. Cyndaquil was forced to jump off of Latios and rely on the leap of faith while its partner dodged the spheres. Lugia used Psychic, catching Cyndaquil and shooting him higher into the sky. This caused Latios to go after its partner. Mutwo and Lugia followed with their partners covering for Latios. As soon as Latios got Cyndaquil, it quickly neared Lugia and Mew before it could hurt away. Vulpix used Blast Burn to try and shake Naruto off, but its trainer was just too unbelievably fast. Time to spice it up, shouted Naruto and brought out a blue sphere. He grinned at them. This one explodes, so I'd be careful. A single ball instantly shot in the center of the 3 flyers, surprising them. To move and dispersed would cause the seal to activate. Lugia tossed Vulpix off to Latios and moved next to the sphere within a split second. A blue kinetic ball of energy appeared around Lugia, who didn't even flinch when the sphere glowed. The bomb exploded with Lugia inside containing the explosion. The blue kinetic sphere disappeared. Don't count Lugia out, warned Naruto, and attacked the others with spheres. The 5 Pokémons defended against the spheres to buy time for Lugia. Lugia appeared from the explosion with a roar and caused the others to keep moving. Smart move of using multi-scale, Lugia, said Naruto. Multi-scale cuts down the damage of an attack by half when the user was at full HP. Meaning Lugia only felt half the explosion, which wasn't much since the bomb wasn't that powerful. Naruto brought out more blue spheres and grinned. This time dodge. The 6 took off to the sky. A smart move, since it would give them time to see the special blue spheres and react accordingly. This caused Naruto to stop and charge his throws more. He smiled and did a single hand seal. 15 Narutos appeared. You just made this harder, shouted Naruto. Every clone brought out spheres of their own and started taking aims. By now the 3 flyers were starting to wear out. Their speed and strength were fading, forcing their companions to block more and more frequently. Snivy quickly became a key player. Its vine whips could stop the black spheres easier than Cyndaquil and Vulpix. Naruto cheered them on as he threw more and more spheres, but with less speed to make it fair. Sometime later. That was great, said Naruto with a soft smile on his face. His entire team were on the ground panting. They had been pushed until they couldn't keep themselves off the ground. Vulpix was flipped upside down much like a puppy and breathing heavily. Lugia was trying to look unfazed, but the heavy breathing was hard to hide. Cyndaquil had curled itself up and dropped to sleep. Latios was flat on the grassy field they were on and was laying on its belly and its face on the grass. Snivy was sunbathing and recovering lost energy and looked just as tired as everyone. It laid inside a small pond taking in the water much like a plant. It was feeling more confident with how well it did, even Mew who wasn't one to praise someone had complimented it. Mewtwo was sitting and meditating recovering its psychic powers. Each had bruises. None were unscathed from their torturous training. Dodging was a lesson they wouldn't forget. Naruto had seen trainer and Pokémons do stupid things like stand still and let the enemy attack. He just refused to follow that little law. To simply stand and take a hit it was borderline stupid. Especially when the foe uses tackle. Naruto smiled at his team again. This time with a touch of pride. They all somehow managed to make the atmosphere feel hateful toward Naruto who was the only one cheerful. "We have several more weeks of training to go," said Naruto with a laugh and smile. This made the atmosphere turn downright murderous. Naruto shrugged it off and brought out food for everyone. "I'm sure you're all hungry." The responses was universal as they all moved toward their respectful bowls of food that they hadn't noticed he placed. Naruto smiled. Things were going great. Naruto arrived at Fuchsia City hungry. He had only Vulpix on his shoulder. The others were in their pokeballs. "How about some food?" suggested Naruto. He walked through the city looking for a restaurant or a food stand. His eyes glazed over when he spotted one. He stopped and checked his Pokédex. The map showed him where Fuchsia City's gym was. He frowned when the Pokédex revealed that the gym was in the outskirts of the city somewhere in the forest. He shrugged it off. He would worry about that later, once he was full. He hadn't had a home-cooked meal in weeks or restaurant for that matter. "According to the map it's supposed to be in the middle of the forest," said Naruto and followed the map on his Pokédex. Cyndaquil sat on his shoulder having taken Vulpix's place. Vulpix was sleeping inside its Pokeball. Cyndaquil replied with its chirpy voice pointing at a random direction. It was trying to take lead. "No, that's not the right direction," replied Naruto and started heading to the closest life sign in the forest. He could feel two people toward that direction. Cyndaquil repeated its name and tried to convince him that it knew better. "Alright," replied Naruto. He'd humor the little mouse Pokémon. He started moving with Cyndaquil's direction. They soon ended up standing on the edge of a cliff. Naruto looked at Cyndaquil who shrugged and pointed to a new direction. This time it was right. "Okay," replied Naruto and started heading back to where he had been at. Naruto ended up at another cliff, but this time there was a bridge that they could cross. "Finally," mumbled Naruto. Cyndaquil took charge again and pointed to the unstable-looking bridge. Naruto frowned. The bridge looked more like a booby trap than a regular aged-old bridge. He decided not to risk it. "Latios, come on out," called Naruto and tossed out Latios' Pokeball. Latios appeared looking very happy and quickly offered them a ride. Naruto got on with Cyndaquil and were easily transported to the other side. "Thanks Latios," said Naruto to the very appreciated Pokémon and returned it to its Pokeball. Cyndaquil was quick to take charge again and demanded they head to another direction. "I think it's this way," said Naruto and pointed toward the direction he knew people were at. He ignored the Venonat that was spying on them. Cyndaquil reluctantly agreed with Naruto and allowed him to lead. Naruto only chuckled at Cyndaquil's antic. They soon came upon an old traditional-looking home. "Looks uninviting," commented Naruto. He automatically grabbed Cyndaquil before it could run in. "Wait." Cyndaquil let itself be held and waited. "Venonat told me that two idiots were heading toward here," said a girl's voice, and she stepped out of the shadow of a tree that had been next to the house. She had long dark green hair with a pink ninja-styled suit on. Cyndaquil glared at her for the insult. It looked at the Venonat that had appeared beside her and shouted its name repeatedly at Venonat. Cyndaquil, translation equals "I'm going to kick your ass." The furry bug Pokémon slowly turned a light shade of purple and attacked. "Use sleep powder Venonat," ordered the trainer. Cyndaquil, use flame wheel, ordered Naruto. Cyndaquil jumped off his shoulder and rolled onto the ground with flames covering it. It rolled with an impressive amount of speed that quickly reached Venonat and slammed into it. It was a super effective move that would easily defeat the bug poison type Pokémon. The sleep powders had been useless since the flames on Cyndaquil had burned them before the attack and do what it was supposed to. "Venonat, no," shouted the trainer and withdrew her Pokémon. She pulled out another Pokeball, but stopped when she saw Cyndaquil start glowing. Cyndaquil slowly turned pure white. Naruto smiled as he saw what was happening. Cyndaquil was evolving. It turned pure white and slowly grew in size. Its body became bigger and its physique more pronounced. It was no longer mouse-like, but rather rabbit-like with a longer stomach. Naruto felt proud when he saw Kulava standing before him. It stood on its hind legs facing the trainer that had attacked them. "Stop Iya," said a voice interrupting the soon-to-resume battle. The girl now known as Iya stopped with a surprised gasp. "Brother," she said and turned sharply toward the voice. A dark-haired man appeared from the shadows of another tree. "I will face this foe," stated the elder brother. The girl put away her pokeball and nodded. She flipped backward away from battle, giving her brother her place. "Is this Fuchsia City's gym?" asked Naruto uncertainly. He was pretty sure it was. He was also surprised that the two people were dressed like ninjas, but he doubted they were in his level since they didn't seem to have much chakra or even know how to use it. "I'm Koga, the gym leader," replied Koga with a strict nod. Naruto grinned. "Then I challenge you for the gym badge." "Then it come out," ordered Koga. He brought out a pokeball and tossed it out. "This will be a 2-on-2 battle." Kulava stood up and the flames on its back erupted. The air surrounding it shimmered from the heat. "Use string shot," ordered Koga to his Pokemon. Kulava stood and let Venonat use string shot, but the flames on Kulava's back simply burned it off. "Sleep powder," ordered Koga. Kulava used flame wheel without needing an order from Naruto. It rolled ferociously toward Venonat, leaving a trail of flames where it passed. "Dodge Venonat," ordered Koga as he saw the attack get too close for comfort. Kulava missed Venonat by mere inches as the Pokemon dodged. "Kulava rebound with fire punch," ordered Naruto. Kulava did a sharp turn and took a firm foothold within a split second and did a quick turn with its fist heading directly at Venonat, who stood surprised from the sudden attack. Venonat dropped unconscious when the attack connected. Koga withdrew his Venonat and eyed Kulava, calculating. "Your Kulava is very fast." "Thanks," replied Naruto with a grin. Koga nodded and threw out his next Pokemon. A Venomoth appeared. It resembled a purple moth. Its sickly color was likely from the poisonous powders it carried. "Venomoth used toxic," ordered Koga. Venomoth spat out dark grimy sludge at Kulava, who easily dodged the attacks. "Use flame wheel," ordered Naruto as soon as he saw the bug Pokemon stop. Kulava rolled again, moving faster than before, and reached Venomoth. "Whirlwind Venomoth," ordered Koga before Kulava could reach it. Kulava was forced to return to its Pokeball and switched out with Vulpix. Vulpix yawned and stretched itself. Its tails moved in a swift motion before its eyes narrowed sharply. "That was surprising," commented Naruto. It was the first someone used Whirlwind against him. Vulpix blurred from where it had stood and tackled Venomoth. Its tails firmly held Venomoth before it opened its maws and delivered a point-blank overheat. Vulpix let go of the bug Pokemon and jumped back. Venomoth hit the ground with a thump and didn't get back up. Koga withdrew his Pokemon and clapped. "That was simply amazing. Your Vulpix's power is nothing to laugh at." Naruto smiled and withdrew Vulpix, who had yawned sleepily before returning. "Thanks," he replied. At least the guy was impressed instead of depressed or angry. Koga nodded and presented the badge to Naruto. Naruto took the badge with a smile. At least the battle was different from the others. "Great meeting you too," said Naruto and waved a goodbye. Koga nodded and took his sister back inside their home. Naruto carried Kulava out into the forest. Leishos happily flew next to them. They were supposed to head for Cinnabar Island, but it was already getting dark and no one wanted to fly at night. As they were walking, they came upon a moving berry that caught their attentions. It moved little by little across the road-like trail they were walking. Naruto could easily see the string tied to it. Kulava and Leishos both sweat dropped at the obvious start of a bait and trap. Only an idiot would follow it and fall for prepared trap. All three simply stood still and let the berry cross. "Now that that's gone," said Naruto and pulled out a small book he had. "I was thinking of creating a new move for you, Leishos," said Naruto. He had been thinking of something that would complement Leishos' own abilities. All three stopped their conversation when a very worried-looking brown-colored bird came out of the bushes. It held a white little stick that curved much like a golf club. It moved its wings left and right, pointing at a direction. It did turns and made hand signs trying to convey a message to Naruto and the other two. Kulava scoffed. It ignored the bird. Leishos did what sounded like a chuckle and floated past the bird. Naruto patted the bird's head and passed. He had felt the deceitful intent a mile away. He was a walking lie detector, so fooling him was next to impossible. The bird was left standing in shock that they hadn't even grew curious of what it had been saying. "I also been thinking of something for you too, Quill," said Naruto and showed a page of his book to Kulava. The book showed possibly moves they could try out. Leishos took on a smug-looking expression as it imagined itself using the move. Both soon were soaring left and right through the trees, with Kulava holding on to Leishos' wing with the same expression. Naruto set up camp while the two were still flying through the forest. They had chosen to camp next to the ocean so that they would simply take off first thing in the morning. Naruto woke up with the angry bird shouting. He got out of his tent with a yawn. The sleepy Typhlosion popped out of the tent with an angry grunt and struggled getting out of the small exit. Naruto gave a surprised glance at Typhlosion, but decided to worry about it later and looked toward the reason why they were waked up. The blue bird moved left and right screaming its name out and swinging a small stick that it carried. It was the Furfitch that they had saw the other day. Typhlosion burst out laughing upon seeing the bird. Leishos came out of its pokeball having sensed them awake and joined Typhlosion in their laughing fit. Naruto grinned at the bird. "You stole the fake bag I forgot by the campfire." The Furfitch had glared and prepared to attack but stopped as Typhlosion stomped the ground getting Furfitch's attention. Typhlosion did what appeared to be an arrogant grin and had Furfitch lose any remaining cool it might have had. The bird attacked with its miniature wooden golf club. Typhlosion didn't move and let Furfitch slammed its club at Typhlosion's head. Typhlosion didn't even flinch before it grinned and forcibly grabbed the bird. Its right fist started charging for a fire punch. Naruto bonked Typhlosion's head before it could get carried away. The focus that fire punch required was ruined, leaving Typhlosion annoyed. "Thanks," said Naruto to Typhlosion and patted him. He turned to the bird still in Typhlosion's grasp. "Just wash yourself. The water can clean it off easily." Farfetch'd gave a glare and slapped Typhlosion's hand away. It gave a glare again to everyone before heading toward the ocean. Typhlosion finally took the time to examine himself. His eyes widened in shocked surprise, then he took on a proud expression. "I think you're the first Pokemon to evolve in your sleep," commented Naruto. He was sure Professor Oak would get a laugh out of it. In response, Typhlosion tested out the flames on its mane. The flames burst as if someone had fueled it with gas. "Return to your Pokeball, I doubt Leishos will want to carry you anymore," said Naruto. Typhlosion had greatly grown in size. Bigger than a full-grown adult. Leishos chirped in agreement. Naruto withdrew Typhlosion before he could argue and brought out Vulpix, who hopped on his shoulder and curled itself with its tails and fell asleep. "The Cinnabar Island Leishos," said Naruto with a smile and got on Leishos, who placed its arms back in their holder and shot off into the skies like a jet. "This isn't Kanto," stated Naruto. He looked at Leishos with an odd expression. "I think you somehow got lost." Leishos was toying with a food machine obliviously. Vulpix and Naruto both turned to look at the giant island that had buildings everywhere. It looked incredible and interesting, but it wasn't Cinnabar Island. At least not what it should look, unless they had somehow traveled ahead in time, but that was not the case. There were flying square robots everywhere and people moving through the streets and with moving stairs. The floating registry guard bot flew over to them. "Please register," it said. The box took on an expression with blue colors. "You'll need an identification." Naruto pulled out his Pokédex and hoped it would work. It should, and it was universal. He frowned when he saw it with a screen saying loading. The bot connected with it and beeped and flashed before taking out a card with his face on it. Naruto took the card and then turned to Leishos, who had somehow got a hot dog from a food bot by the look of things. "What better way to make you public than to come to a city with floating bots that can take pictures," mumbled Naruto. Leishos were extremely rare, so he'd probably be a marked target now. He looked down at Vulpix, who was curiously watching everything. There were lots of people here. Naruto picked Vulpix up and decided they might as well explore. Next time he'd just make sure not to fall asleep while traveling on Leishos. "I think we're just outside the border of Hone if this is where I think it is," said Naruto and dragged Leishos by the arm with them. They stepped onto moving sidewalks. It was the first time they seen something like it. Naruto toyed with the idea of moonwalking on it but decided not to. Leishos cooed at its hot dog and childishly ate as it was dragged. Crumbs of food were stuck on its mouth. "You're the only one that could do this, Leishos. Turn a 6-day flying journey into a single travel day," said Naruto to Leishos. They were so far from Kanto that it wasn't even lost. Leishos gave him an innocent look and took an innocent bite out of its hot dog. Naruto sighed and started heading for a random tower. The place was crawling with trainers. He just saw Blasters pass them with a girl who was squealing about victory. "Since you were spotted, I don't see why I should have you return to your Pokeball," said Naruto to Leishos. Leishos did a small dance in midair. This got it a lot of attention. Trainers who were passing by snapped pictures of Leishos or pointed in awe. Naruto shook his head and started heading to the tower where lots of trainers were coming from. It was a good place to start asking questions. "Hurry, Leishos," called Naruto. It got sidetracked by another hot dog machine. He felt like trying one due to Leishos squealing at how delicious they were. Leishos reached him quickly and happily followed until they reached the tower. Upon entering one of the towers, a man wearing a green uniform and official-looking hat hurriedly greeted them. "Uzumaki, Naruto?" asked the man. "Yes," replied Naruto with a nod, then took on a questioning look. Where is this place?" "You're late," said the man and pointed at an electronic schedule list hung up on the walls. "Your first battle will be starting soon." "Battle?" asked Naruto, but the man didn't answer. Naruto and the other two were herded along into an elevator before they could ask anything else or even argue. Naruto was pressed against the walls due to Leisho's size and had to return Leisho's to its Pokeball. He pulled out his Pokédex and grunted in annoyance when it brought up a loading screen. It seemed to be trying to locate him and downloading new data. "This situation just keeps developing," said Naruto to Vulpix as the elevator started moving up. The elevator stopped and opened. It led to a dark hall that had lights on the side guiding those passing in the right direction. "And next is Naruto Uzumaki from Pallet Town," said a loud voice. "Oh," said Naruto and instantly cheered up as he realized what the voice meant, a battle. Vulpix excitedly got ready. They both arrived into a giant battle room. The battleground was metal and didn't extend all the way to the walls. Instead there were open spaces that a Pokémon could fly through or fall off of. The brown-haired trainer stood opposite of them. An adult teen by the look of it. "Golem, come out," shouted the trainer. The large round rock-like Pokémon appeared. It had a bald head looking kind of strange. The body was more of a rugged orb. "Vulpix," said Naruto. Vulpix jumped off his shoulder and landed on the battle plate that they all stood on. "This will be easy," said the trainer. Naruto grinned in response and eyed the black walls. There were people on the other side and cameras everywhere. "Let the battle begin," said the referee's voice. "Vulpix extrasensory," ordered Naruto. Vulpix's chocolate eyes glowed blue. Golem didn't even know what hit it and screamed out in pain. "Golem, use roll out," called the trainer. "Break Vulpix's focus." Despite being in mental pain, Golem rolled hazardously toward Vulpix. "Stop your attack and use Inferno," said Naruto. He could see that Golem wouldn't stop its rampage soon enough to dodge. Vulpix let Golem roll in closer despite its trainer telling it to stop, but its mental pain disrupted any rational thoughts. Vulpix stopped and gathered blue flames at the tip of its nose. Vulpix's eyes sharpened and it whipped its head directly at Golem, who had stopped and was looking dazed. The flames hit Golem directly, bathing its sky blue flames that lingered on its body. Golem screamed in pain and rolled into a ball of rock in an effort to protect itself. "Golem, return," shouted the trainer and withdrew his Pokémon. The trainer pulled out a second Pokeball and brought out his next Pokémon. "Absol, I choose you." The white sheep-colored Pokémon appeared. It had menacing yellow eyes and a dark sharp half-sword figure on its head and looked much like a menacing dog. "Vulpix, return," said Naruto and had Vulpix withdraw. He pulled out Typhlosion's Pokeball. Typhlosion came out by itself. It appeared cockily and stood with the flames on its back burning heatedly. Typhlosion stared Absol down and sniffed. It made a go-away motion with the motion of its left hand. Absol seemed indifferent, but the dark menacing aura around it grew. "Absol, use Shadow Ball," ordered the trainer. Naruto decided to let Typhlosion battle itself unless he needed to step in and guide Typhlosion. Absol did as commanded and gathered dark energy at the tip of its snout and fired it off at Typhlosion. The black ball zigzagged through the air at Typhlosion. Typhlosion stood still and let the ball pass harmlessly and hit the black wall behind. An explosion followed afterward. "What was that?" shouted the trainer. In response to the trainer's question, a screen appeared on the dark walls and showed Typhlosion blurring for a second. It slowed down and showed Typhlosion dodging it faster than the eye could see. Typhlosion cockily yawned at Absol. Naruto felt sorry for Absol, who was slowly starting to lose its cool. The trainer also grew angry at Typhlosion's cocky dismissal. "Use Razor Wind," shouted the trainer. Typhlosion did what looked to be a flawless dance and passed through the storm of Razor Winds untouched. Naruto gaped. That had been how he had moved to dodge during the last training session. Cyndaquil must have copied his footwork then. The clever mouse was always improving. "I'll show you the next step to that technique since you like it," said Naruto to Typhlosion and laughed. Typhlosion was acting like Kakashi. Typhlosion took on a smug expression and kept dodging Absol's attacks. "Absol, use agility," ordered the trainer. He figured they weren't fast enough, so they'd get fast enough. Typhlosion gave Absol an interested look and watched as Absol glowed slightly green. "Follow up with Bulk Up," ordered the trainer. Absol glowed red this time and huffed out a small stream of steam. Its yellow eyes turning a shade of red. Typhlosion cockily eyed Absol down again. This time Absol rushed at Typhlosion at a much faster speed before. It whipped its sharp knife-like horn at Typhlosion. Razor winds were rained down on Typhlosion. Typhlosion repeated its footwork and dodged, but Absol appeared quickly next to it and had a shadow ball charged up and fired. Typhlosion blurred, dodging the attack just barely, but Absol had a second set of Razor Winds almost ready. Typhlosion hit it quickly, ordered Naruto. The attack was too close to dodge anymore. Typhlosion's right arm sparked. Before Absol could do anything else, Typhlosion smashed Absol's head with a thunder punch. A spark of yellow blinded everyone and the sound of thunder echoed as the attack connected. In its haste to win, it had gotten too close. Absol had gotten close just as Typhlosion had originally wanted. Absol dropped unconscious, stopping it in its track. It was quickly withdrawn by its trainer. "Melodic, you're up," said the trainer. A beautiful and long snake-like Pokémon appeared. Its body was pale yellow and decorated with blue markings. Its tail and top head were outlined in red. The Flosian applauded and said something in its own language. Rare. Translation equals I've seen ugly fishes before, but you take the cake. Melodic grew angry. It was less patient than the previous battlers. It opened its mouth and pointed upward. The whirlpool of water formed around it and expanded outward before the whirlpool of water was guided directly at Typhlosion. "Jump back and stop Melodic," ordered Naruto. The Typhlosion moved back quickly. The Typhlosion lifted up its left arm and pointed directly at Melodic, who was on the other side of the whirlpool that was rapidly nearing. It took aim and cocked its arm back and supported its arm with the other before it grinned. A small sharp ball of orange burning beams gathered at one of Typhlosion's fingernail. A laser-like beam cut right through the whirlpool and hit Melodic's forehead. "Oh. An amazing and masterful use of overheat," said the voice of the battle narrator. "This Typhlosion is truly an incredible Pokémon." Melodic collapsed unconscious. The giant whirlpool of water collapsed and fell down the side of the battle plate into the dark abyss below. The trainer withdrew his Pokémon and gritted his teeth. He brought out his next Pokémon. "Vaporeon, put Typhlosion's flame out," shouted the trainer. The blue dog-like Pokémon appeared. It had fish-like manes. Its eyes were beady black. This was another water type that Typhlosion was weak against. "My Vaporeon is the strongest in my team," warned the trainer. Typhlosion didn't seem to care much and rehearsed its punches nonchalantly. It acted much like a boxer and wagged its finger toward Vaporeon. "Vaporeon, use swagger," ordered the trainer. It was time to fight fire with fire. Vaporeon responded by motioning its tail to Typhlosion. It wagged back and forth, baiting Typhlosion. Typhlosion scoffed. It wasn't falling for something so simple. Vaporeon stopped its tail and eyed Typhlosion's own tail. It smirked condescendingly and waved its tail in a beautiful manner. Typhlosion looked at his own tail and saw the small stump he had. His eyes narrowed down. Typhlosion crossed the distance between them with 3 leaps and was upon Vaporeon. "Quick, use Aqua Tail," ordered the trainer. Fortunately, Vaporeon was already preparing for the attack and attacked fast enough to intercept Typhlosion. Typhlosion was slapped back by the Aqua Tail. It rolled and slowly got up, holding its cheek. A red tinge mark appeared where Vaporeon had slapped it. Typhlosion looked ready to commit murder. It could dish it out, but receiving wasn't its thing. "Calm down and think clearly," ordered Naruto. He could already see how dramatic Typhlosion was. Typhlosion nodded and eyed the ceilings. Plans were quickly thought up of for revenge and mixed in with Naruto's sketchbook. Typhlosion glowed red and unleashed a giant stream of flames directly up at the ceiling. "Quick, detach the roof," shouted the narrator of the battle from the speakers. The metal roof clicked and was hit by the stream of powerful flame. It was knocked off the building. "Someone get it," shouted the narrator. "Have a bird and psychic type go quick." Typhlosion ignored all that and kept shooting the powerful magma red stream of flames into the clear sky. "That's blast burn," shouted the announcer. A powerful secret move known only to a few. Typhlosion roared and the flame's intensity increased and struck its flames directly into the clouds up above. What could Typhlosion be thinking? "That blast burn is sure to take a lot out of it," said the narrator's voice again before fading into the background. "That was just stupid," said the trainer. Vaporeon hit it with Aqua Tail, well, it's weakened. Typhlosion ignored the trainer and stopped its flames to dodge Vaporeon. It looked tired from exertion, but grinned confidently. It jumped back and put some distance between Vaporeon and itself. "You haven't practiced this," warned Naruto. Plus Typhlosion wasn't thinking clearly either. It was doing the exact opposite he was advising, but he was also curious if Typhlosion could pull it off. He could stop Typhlosion, but he didn't want to stop it. Typhlosion responded by confidently dodging Vaporeon and jumping away again, this time putting more distance. It grinned as it saw the darkening sky. Typhlosion's mane burst into flames and lifted its right hand into the sky. Its paw started cackling with yellow electricity as it charged up for a thunder punch. The sky was dark. Thunder clouds were heard rumbling as if stirred awake. "I don't believe it," shouted the narrator. "Is Typhlosion going to do what I think it is?" Vaporeon quickly realized what was going on along with its trainer. "Vaporeon, use water gun," shouted the trainer. They needed to stop Typhlosion. A blue streak of lightning struck Typhlosion's yellow paw. The water gun was blown away by the sudden pressure caused by the thunder connecting to Typhlosion's paw. "Vaporeon, use protect," shouted the trainer as he saw what Typhlosion was doing. If ever there was a time to use protect, this was it. "Unbelievable," shouted the voice from the speaker. "Typhlosion is using nature's power." "This is Kirin," shouted Naruto and pointed down at Vaporeon. Typhlosion roared something at Vaporeon. Vaporeon gaped. Roar, translation equals dodge this. A streak of blue thunder struck Vaporeon before it could even twitch. The entire battle room was engulfed in a blue and white blinding flash. Naruto covered his eyes from the flash. His vision came back slowly. The entire room was shutting down from a power outage. Blue streaks of electric danced across the room. Where Vaporeon had been was an unconscious and fried Pokemon. It was quickly withdrawn by its trainer, who had his hair spiked out from being touched by the attack. His clothes were charred and he was exhaling a stream of smoke before falling unconscious. The door to the battle room opened and medics rushed in, taking the trainer and his Pokemons away. The Typhlosion stood holding a sparking blue paw up in the air. Lightning cackled around its paw and it grimaced in pain. "You should listen more," shouted Naruto and shook off the electric dancing around him. It hurt, but he was experienced with lightning. The medics came, checking his pulse and Typhlosion, who still stood in the battle plate. The light slowly came back on and the announcer's voice returned. "We have had some technical difficulties, but are back," said the voice. "The battle tower will recognize that attack as a secret move." "Secret?" shouted Naruto. "Yes, secret. It's a very powerful move, just like Blast Burn," replied the voice, and a bot entered the room. The bot projected a recording of Typhlosion against the walls. Typhlosion was shown using Kirin and Naruto standing behind, calling the attack's name. Typhlosion looked menacing as it held up its blue paw that was connected with the lightning from up above the sky. It was an incredible sight. The wind seemed to be blowing away from Typhlosion and its eyes held power. "Uzumaki Naruto from Pallet Town is the winner," shouted the voice, and his dangerously mild-tempered Typhlosion. Typhlosion growled. "An electrifying end," shouted the voice and went silent. Naruto withdrew Typhlosion and managed to calm the medics. He had to convince them that he was okay before getting direction to the Poké Center. "Don't forget about your next match," reminded the medics before leaving him. Naruto shrugged. He was about ready to head back to Kanto. He didn't care much if he got disqualified, but a tournament usually had a grand prize. He rubbed his head and decided it was time to train Snivy and hopefully make it evolve. The island was overflowing with trainers and would be the perfect training ground. Leisho's getting lost was probably a blessing in disguise. "Honestly, this folks just don't give up," grumbled Naruto as he kicked a person. The person groaned and rolled into a pile of other groaning people. "You bastard," shouted one. The guy who yelled struggled to even lift his head and was heavily bruised. Hey, it's not my fault," replied Naruto. Team Aqua had seen it fit to invite him into their ranks, but he had turned them down and they didn't exactly like that. "Of course we couldn't let you go. You know about us," growled another. The guy was more beat than other. Naruto shrugged. "Even if you had 100 trainer ready to silence me beforehand, it wouldn't have changed a thing." Cerulean appeared next to Naruto and was dragging 3 more Aqua members. It had evolved thanks to Team Aqua volunteering to be its punching bag. "Don't worry. I don't care about expanding the sea anyway, so goodbye," said Naruto and waved before picking Cerulean up and heading back to the battle towers. Naruto sat on soft green grass and sat with a perfect view of the battle towers. On his lap was Cerulean, who had deemed it okay for him to hold it. "Hey Cerulean," said Naruto as he looked into the blue sky. It was daytime. Cerulean didn't answer, but it moved a bit in response. "You know what my life's biggest disappointment was?" asked Naruto softly. "It was this one Pokemon I heard about that made me think I'd reach home for sure." Cerulean curiously looked at him. "Jirachi? Hey, are you Uzumaki Naruto?" shouted a loud tough guy voice. Naruto wearily opened his eyes. The sun was just rising and he had fallen asleep where he had been with Cerulean. Cerulean was curled softly in arms, but it had also stirred awake from the loud voice. Naruto rubbed his eyes and stared at a group of people surrounding him. "We're Team Magma," said the guy that had woken them up. He stood defiantly with a Matina at his side. They were all wearing red capes and had red hood with dog-like ears. They each had the same symbol on the front of their clothes. Is this a club?" asked Naruto slowly. Cerulean stretched and whipped its vines as it warmed up for battle. It looked excited at the thought of more battles. The leader of the group cleared his throat. "We're here to invite you to join us. Our goal is to increase the landmass so that the world can." "Pass," said Naruto as he cut the guy off. "I'm not into changing the world." The leader looked stricken before he said, "I'm sorry you feel that, but you leave us with no choice the." Cerulean used its vine and grabbed the guy's throat and threw him across small grass hill they were on. "Get them," shouted the group. Naruto rubbed his head and let Cerulean handle them. He still needed more sleep. Cerulean was more than capable. Plus he was pretty sure he could feel Leisho's out of its pokeball and was watching. Cerulean used Leaf Storm on the nicely aligned foes. Its wide-scale attack hit the people and the single Matina. "Edit," yelled the Magma leader. He glared at the sleeping man behind Cerulean. The underlings brought out fire-type Pokemons to beat Cerulean. Multiple Matinas were also called out with Slugmas to help. "Our attacks keep getting overpowered," shouted one Magma runt. His Slugmas flamethrower had been overpowered by Seven's Leaf Storm. "It keeps getting stronger," shouted another and was hit by a Leaf Storm. "We're Team Magma. We'll be laughed at if we lose to a grass Pokemon," yelled the leader and brought out a Slugma of his own. "I heard about this Pokemon," shouted another Magma underling and ducked to dodge a Vine Whip. Contrary a rare ability. The underling was whipped by Cerulean and hit him shut up. Cerulean took its time to cleanly beat the Matinas and Slugmas. It used its superior speed to dodge and retaliate. The Magma leader growled as he realized why the grass Pokemon had just kept getting stronger. Leaf Storm lowers the user's special attack, but with contrary as a ability it does the opposite. Meaning everything works in reverse when stats are involved. "Don't let it in. It has to get tired sooner or later," shouted another runt. Professor Oak rubbed his head and looked at the amount of money he had to pay. "Battle Frontier entrance fee," he said to himself and put the bill away before paying attention to his TV. He needed to tune in the Frontier channel and see if Naruto was really participating. Naruto was always so surprising. To end up in Hoenn while collecting Kanto badges. "Oh my," said Professor Oak as he saw the Frontier channel show a recap of Typhlosion battling a Vaporeon. His eyes stayed glued to the TV. He'd stay that way until the battle ended. Naruto peacefully ate a hot dog. Leishos was with him as was a newly evolved superior. They were both on a small empty island. It was located somewhere in the uncharted region of the ocean. Pokemons evolved so easily around him that he wondered if he had a talent in it but would always realize it was simply because he was awesome. Naruto shook those thoughts off and watched one other of his Pokemon out and about. Typhlosion held its poor right paw and grimaced in pain. There was still leftover power from the Kirin and was tormenting it. Blue electric danced around its right paw every now and then. Normal paralysis didn't heal it. Typhlosion finally looked toward Naruto and asked for help. It had stubbornly refused help. Typhlosion had been trying to get rid of the paralysis itself, but it simply didn't know how to do so. Naruto sighed and walked over to Typhlosion. He touched Typhlosion's right paw. The blue lightning slowly faded as he absorbed it. "Next time at least learn how to manipulate lightning even a little," warned Naruto. He would have to teach Typhlosion later on about lightning manipulation. When Typhlosion had used Kirin it had been uncontrolled and wild. It had been due to his subtle intervention that none of them had been killed. Typhlosion grunted and laid on the grass relaxed. It looked around it and saw water. They were on a small island in the middle of the ocean. Naruto shrugged and closed his eyes to sleep. Typhlosion sprawled over on its back enjoying the sun. It blissfully closed its eyes. A shadow slowly creeped over its face and covered the sun. Typhlosion opened its eyes. A familiar blue dragon faced it. Leishos giggled. Next to it floated a wild red Leishos who also giggled. Typhlosion growled. Leishos brought up a hand saying stop. Typhlosion stopped to hear Leishos out. Leishos motioned to look at Leishos. Leishos glowed blue and clapped. A healing move called Helping Hand was used on Typhlosion. Typhlosion felt the fatigue it had disappear slowly. Leishos giggled and cheerfully flew off leaving the island and flying over the ocean. Leishos chirped and flew off following Leishos. Typhlosion dozed off in a peaceful sleep again. Leishos would be back. It was simply off with its girlfriend. Naruto slowly woke up. He yawned and closed his eyes from the bright sun. He blinked as he realized his pillow was too soft and that he was on an island. He got up and stretched. He laughed when he realized Typhlosion had been the pillow. Typhlosion was snoozing off peacefully and Leishos was curled a bit above them and holding an egg. Superior was curled up much like a snake and was soaking in the sunlight. Naruto rubbed his eyes and slowly remembered how they had ended up on the island. Wait. An egg? Naruto looked back at Leishos so fast that he flashed. He stared at the blue and white colored egg before scratching his head. Leishos was a guy so that meant Leishos must have gotten the egg somewhere. He checked his pokeballs and sighed in relief. He still had his full team, but he would have to leave someone behind if he wanted to keep the egg. Great, he mumbled. Typhlosion snapped awake and yawned. Naruto hopped away from Typhlosion. The main's Typhlosion had exploded and nearly burned him. Superior grew defensive and hissed. Typhlosion waved its concerns off. It used a charisma to convince Superior that it had absolute control over its flames. Leishos woke up from the heat and stretch. It carried the egg as if it was used to carrying it all its life. Leishos, called Naruto. Leishos was instantly attentive. Where did you get the egg? Leishos cheerfully chirped and explained in its own language. It seemed to have completely forgot that it could talk by using a telepathic power. Naruto sighed and looked toward Typhlosion for explanation. Typhlosion lifted both its hands in the air and slowly merged them into one. Then it simply pointed at the egg. Naruto's sweat dropped at Typhlosion's blunt explanation. "Okay," replied Naruto uncertainly. "Just keep the egg then." Leishos nodded and flew to Typhlosion. Typhlosion was suddenly given the egg and Leishos chirped happily and got ready to fly them off the island. Typhlosion grew happy that he could be carried and happily got on. Superior returned to its pokeball by itself. It didn't do flying. It was a snake. Naruto simply got on and let Leishos take off. It was time they got back on track and challenged Cinnabar Island's gym. They were so behind schedule. Streams of yellow chakra struck the surface of calm water and caused a large watery explosion. Naruto concentrated on multiple beams of chakras and shooting down his Pokémons. He was using Kyuubi's chakra to train them. Kyuubi was still asleep, Kurama had woken up once, but it had grumbled about how noisy he was and went back to its happy dreams. The days when only blood and gore existed. He had the egg as he rode on Leishos. They were partnered up and counted as a team of 3. Everyone else's goal was to hit them while also defending themselves. Leishos glided above the ocean's water and dodged Lugia's arrow blast. Water were blasted into the air as it struck next to them. Naruto retaliated and shot down Lugia with a single stream of powerful chakra. Lugia was blasted back and smashed into the calm surface of the ocean. It flipped on the surface several times before it sunk. Vulpix, who had been on Lugia, jumped off of Lugia and used blast burn. Flames hit the ocean below and Vulpix was propelled hit into the sky. It was using its powerful flames to fly. A clever move, but if it kept it up too long it wouldn't have the energy to even run afterward. Steams rose where the flames hit and Vulpix disappeared in the distance as Leishos kept moving with Naruto and the egg. Typhlosion appeared next with the flames of its mane blazing. It was running across the ocean surface. Steams rose behind it. Its long and fast stride easily kept up with Leishos. Typhlosion made running on water look easy. Typhlosion opened its mouth as it ran and attacked. Leishos took a sharp dive into the sky and dodged a weak blast burn. The stream of powerful flames passed below them. Typhlosion passed below them soon afterward and started rolling. It was using Flame Wheel on the ocean surface. An incredible combination of mastery over speed and power. A shadowy figure appeared below the ocean surface just below Typhlosion's moving body. Typhlosion was thrown into the sky by a sudden force. Leishos took a sharp turn and dodged Typhlosion's Flame Wheel. The arrow blast nearly hit them just as soon as Leishos turned, but Naruto countered by shooting another beam of chakra to cancel the blast out. Lugia caught Typhlosion before it could hit the ocean surface and kept chasing after Leishos. A third foe appeared. Superior glided onto the ocean surface. Its snake-like body effortlessly keeping up with the high-speed battle. Sharp razor-like leaves shot into the air at Naruto and Leishos. Leishos dodged the attack effortlessly. The sun was bright and it was helping Superior, who glowed for only a second. It was the only warning Naruto and Leishos got before Superior used Solar Beam. Leishos dived straight into the ocean and dodged the white beam. The attack passed and hit the blue sky. Leishos resurfaced almost instantly with a blue kinetic energy orb around it and was blasted off into the sky. The ocean water seemed to follow Leishos in the air. Johto appeared out of the large ripple explosion and was shooting after Leishos and Naruto. Leishos caught itself in mid-air and took off again. This time moving faster until it was just a bullet shooting into the air. Lugia and Typhlosion were onto Leishos' tail within seconds with the others closely behind. The water below gave way to their speed. Naruto tried to shoot Lugia down again, but Lugia used its kinetic shield and took the attack head-on. Typhlosion, who was on Lugia, used Thunder Punch and struck the chakra beam before retreating into Lugia's kinetic shield. The beam split into two and shot in different directions. Lugia and Typhlosion had cut right through and neared them. Naruto smirked, he gripped the egg properly. His unoccupied hand blurred as he went through one-handed seals and stopped. Dragons made of water came out of the ocean and started trying to slow Lugia and Typhlosion down. The two disappeared from view, but the others following behind had simply went around and resumed the chase. Superior appeared beside them. Razor-sharp vine whips attacked even faster than they were moving. Leishos' kinetic shield deflected the attacks before it collapsed. Johto appeared above them with Vulpix. Johto had a shadow bolt prepared and Vulpix had blue flames at the tip of its nose. The sky was being blocked and they were boxed in. Naruto blurred through another set of hand seals. A visible yellow energy appeared around them. It glowed white before it expanded. Expanded wasn't the right word. It exploded outward and tossed everyone away. Loud clapping sounds were heard as the chaser hit the ocean surface and bouncing like pebbles. Leishos used the opening to put more distance between itself and the other, but Lugia was once again after it, along with Typhlosion. The two had definitely recovered in record time. Lugia hardly looked worn down, and neither was Typhlosion. Both were closing in fast, and Typhlosion was constantly glowing red. It was bulking up, a scary thought since Typhlosion was already a monster in its own right. Lugia took to the sky above and past Latios. It was slowly overtaking them. Typhlosion used Blast Burn. The streams of powerful flames came at Latios and Naruto. Latios glowed and countered with Solar Beam. The resulting explosion slowed Latios down. Lugia had used Typhlosion's attack to accelerate even faster and was further ahead of Latios. Enough to suddenly stop and do a 180 to flap its wings directly at Latios. Chilly wind struck Latios. The water below turned to cold hard ice. Lugia had used Blizzard. Naruto blurred through another set of hand seals. Lugia and Typhlosion were closing in, but spikes of ice rose out of the frozen ocean. The two started dodging instead of chasing. Latios glowed as it charged a solar beam to hit Lugia and Typhlosion, but it suddenly had to whip its head back up and fire it at Muto and Vulpix, who appeared from the clouds above. The monster solar beam struck the two. Vulpix and Mew were pushed back into the clouds and disappeared from view. Those two wouldn't be gone for long, that would only disorient them. Latios moved before it could be boxed in again. The frozen wasteland was soon just a dot in the distance behind them. Superior appeared below Latios, surprising the blue dragon. Superior had used Latios' shadow to hide itself beneath the ocean and struck with Leaf Storm. Latios' eyes widened from the surprise attack. Naruto spat out a large fireball countering the vortex of leaves and turning them to nothing but ashes. Superior was undeterred, glowed green. The move was Frenzy Plant, and by the look of it, Superior was serious. Giant thick roots with thorns appeared everywhere, shooting out of the water ahead. Latios was going too fast to avoid entering in the now forest of roots. The roots whipped around with life of their own to capture Latios and Naruto. Latios weaved through the roots and cut through what it could with Crush Claw. It couldn't go up since the plants would easily grab it as it rose. It needed an opening. Latios saw Superior getting too close for comfort. The grass Pokemon was using the vines to speed it up. Latios' luck ran out when a single vine managed to hit it. It was pushed into a second vine that quickly wrapped itself onto it. Naruto cut right through the vines using the wind. He grinned at Superior, who had been so close at finally trapping them. Latios had enough of the vines and used Psychic. All the vines became still. Latios shot out of the forest of roots quickly, with Superior angrily following behind. Muto and Vulpix appeared above. A shadow ball smashed beside Latios. Explosions followed Latios, who picked up more speed as the seconds went by. Lugia appeared in front of Latios with Typhlosion. Both were blocking Latios' path. A wall of flames rose from the ocean surface. Typhlosion was using everything it had to stop Latios. The flames increased until Lugia was engulfed in the flames with it. Lugia used Psychic. It was going to shape the flames. The flames turned to walls, then transformed into a giant ball of flame. It was a ball straight from hell. Vulpix glowed red as it stood on Mew's shoulder. Its tails glowed and ignited in flames as it prepared to use its most devastating attack. Mew got behind Latios and let Vulpix fire off a stream of powerful flames behind Latios, forcing Latios to move toward Typhlosion and Lugia. Naruto sat down on Latios and placed the egg between his legs. Superior used Solar Beam with the last of its power and fired at Latios to force Latios to go further ahead, just as they all wanted. Naruto and Latios both entered the giant ball of flame that Typhlosion was producing. Every attack connected with Latios and Naruto. The blinding white ball of energy was created with Naruto and Latios both inside. Everyone quickly realized something was wrong when more and more energy was sucked into the ball of energy, but was shrinking instead of growing. Muto used Psychic to force every of its comrade to stop. It saw that all those attacks had not affected Latios or Naruto a bit. The powerful ball of energy was sucked in as if it were food by Naruto, with wispy steams rising below. Naruto and Latios appeared from the mist unharmed. The thick mist slowly dispersing. Lugia looked singed from the effort it had put into using Psychic to shape the flames into a wall and later ball. Typhlosion was burned out but stood on Lugia, breathing heavily. Superior was using its snake-like body to float and was recovering every bit of energy it could. Vulpix was in the same condition as Typhlosion. Muto didn't look too healthy either, but it was far from out unlike the others. "Ah, that was a lot to take in," shouted Naruto with a grin. "You guys almost had us." Typhlosion let out a moan and collapsed on Lugia. Lugia slowly sunk onto the ocean surface and floated. It too had taken too much damage to continue and had expended too much power. Superior remained silent as it collected energy from the now bright sun. Vulpix didn't seem ready to give up, and neither was Muto. Naruto eyed his surrounding and gulped. "That's really dangerous, Mew." An entire wave of water was rising around them. It slowly kept rising until it covered the sunlight and had everyone trapped. The only exit was the small opening at the top. Latios slowly sunk into the water. It was tired. Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly and raised a flag in surrender. He could stop it, but Latios was too tired to keep moving. They were a team, so if Latios was out then so was he. The water slowly sunk back and Mutwo splashed into the ocean water and floated with Vulpix on its head. Vulpix was avoiding water as much as it could. Naruto laughed and patted Latios before looking at everyone. "That was great, guys. We crossed Hoen's ocean and reached Kanto's ocean in record time," stated Naruto with a bright smile. He held out a Pokédex. "But you guys failed to stop us from reaching Kanto an hour ago." Everyone groaned except the silent few. Latios cheerfully sang victory, but still didn't have the energy to float off of the ocean's water. Instead it floated much like a small boat and twirled in the water. It quickly took its egg from Naruto. "Lugia and Typhlosion nearly had us with Blizzard and Superior had us surrounded at one point," said Naruto, and then looked to Vulpix and Mutwo. "You two waited for a perfect opportunity to join the others, but by then it had already been too late." Vulpix rubbed its head in shame. Mutwo shrugged. Capturing Naruto was impossible, they all knew that already, so it was nothing to be ashamed of. "You've all grown strong," stated Naruto proudly. "But I'm still undefeated." Naruto was slapped by Superior's vine. Defeated? Everyone thought the same thing as they saw how Naruto had casually been slapped. Naruto rubbed his cheek in embarrassment and jumped in the ocean after Superior to give it a piece of his mind. "No!" shouted Naruto as he found Superior's vine wrapping around him. He slowly started sinking. "I'm sorry," pleaded Naruto as he was slowly drowned. He somehow kept managing to rise back up with just head out. Latios floated toward Naruto on the water with its egg held out upward to keep it dry. It made a rumbling noise and came to a halt. Latios chirped cheerfully and offered him a ride. "A boat," said Naruto suddenly and laughed. Superior got bored and unraveled its vine. Naruto smiled brightly and climbed on Latios. "Isn't this fun?" stated Naruto to all and sat down on Latios with water dripping off of him. His blonde hair dropping down to partially cover his eyes. Everyone was too tired to answer, but he knew they all felt the same way. "I'll see you all later," said Naruto and withdrew all of his team except Latios. He put away the Pokeballs and pointed toward the general direction, Cinnabar Island. "Swim, Latios." Latios happily agreed and started its rumbling noise and started sailing slowly through the ocean. "I see it," said Naruto when he spotted Cinnabar Island in the distance. Latios increased its speed and kept rumbling. It was more of a speedboat now. With its energy back it was once again speedy. "We can finally get that badge," shouted Naruto with a large smile. Within minutes they reached shore. Latios looked sad to give up being a boat, but Naruto said it made a great boat and cheered it up. "I think the gym is supposed to be in the volcano," said Naruto and pointed to the giant volcano that was the island. The town on the island was visible from where they were, but Naruto didn't feel that he had the time to wander anymore. He needed all 8 badges soon, otherwise he'd miss the league that was getting closer every day. "Now to search the volcano," announced Naruto. He started walking, but Latios suddenly handed him its egg with a smile and saluted him a goodbye before returning to its Pokeball, leaving him alone. Naruto stood slightly surprised but quickly figured Latios needed to rest. He pulled out a second Pokeball and brought out Typhlosion. Typhlosion appeared standing upright and yawning. It took its time yawning before doing a series of complicated stretches. Naruto stood seeing very familiar looking stretches and realized that Typhlosion copied everything he did, including his stretches. The sweat dropped as he realized Typhlosion had also done one extra stretch. Typhlosion had even stretched its small tail. Typhlosion finished its stretches and finally looked content. "You really scare me sometime," said Naruto slowly before he pointed to the volcano. "We're going to the volcano to find the gym of this island." Typhlosion nodded. "Okay," said Naruto and held the egg with a better grip and started climbing. He knew that the gym was located in the volcano based on past rumors he had heard. "This is most definitely extreme," said Naruto as he stood at the top ring of the volcano. He could see liquid magma inside it. There was a carved stone stairs that led down inside the volcano. Typhlosion looked happy. It carelessly jumped into the burning magma, surprising Naruto. Typhlosion came out of the magma looking completely refreshed. "I see, the heat heals you," said Naruto and chuckled. "Come on, we need to find the gym leader." "I'm right here," said a voice. Naruto looked up and saw another cave. The gym leader stood above them and the stairs. He looked to be an old bald man. "If you're looking for me then that means you want to get a badge," stated the gym leader. "Yeah," replied Naruto. "I'm here to challenge your gym." "Then go down and I shall meet you on the battleground," replied the gym leader and disappeared from sight. "Come on, Typhlosion," called Naruto and started running down inside the volcano. "It looks dangerous," said Naruto as he saw a battle plate. The plate floated over boiling magma. It looked as if it had just been fixed. He could make out fractures on it, making him hesitate. The gym leader stood waiting for him and Typhlosion. "If you're scared you can leave," said the old man. "Dream on," replied Naruto and stepped onto the plate. "Typhlosion, you'll be up first." Typhlosion ran onto the plate and stood ready for battle. "I Blaine, gym leader of Cinnabar Island, will be happy to show you how powerful fire can be," said Blaine. "Magma, come out." Naruto was kind of surprised when a magma appeared out of the magma below. It was steaming slightly from having been inside the volcano. "This will be a one-on-one battle, if you defeat Magma, then you'll be the winner," said Blaine. He was confident that his Magma would come out victorious. "That kind of scared me," admitted Naruto to Typhlosion. They were flying on Lugia. Lugia had decided to come out and stretch, and flying from Cinnabar Island to Viridian City was a good distance for it. Typhlosion growled and held a slightly bruised cheek. Magma hadn't been hard, but it had managed to land a clean hit by pure luck. "I can fix your bruise, but you keep insisting on leaving it," said Naruto and shook his head. Typhlosion was no longer listening and was acting much like a dog and letting the wind hit it. Naruto laughed at the sight of Typhlosion trying to touch the clouds that they passed. "Only one more badge to go." The REAK. "There we have all 8, said Naruto to Vulpix. He pocketed the 8th badge and hurried off to meet Professor Oak. The last badge had been hurriedly obtained since he had lost time while in Hone and had to collect the last badge hastily, but he had managed. Cinnabar Island's gym had been somewhat challenging, and defeating 2 people to obtain the last badge had been easiest badge ever. Now all he had to do was meet up with Oak. Then he could challenge the champion of Kanto. He only had to defeat the Dragon Master Lance. That guy seemed pretty strong when he saw him on TV once. "What?" cried Naruto. "I said Lance won't be accepting any challenges this year," replied Professor Oak. "He's off investigating some criminal activity in Johto." "Oh, when I rushed here just to get the last badges in time," moaned Naruto and sat down on a lab chair. Now there's always next year," said Professor Oak in a cheerful tone. "Did you say Johto?" asked Naruto and perked up. It was where he had captured Lugia and met the prick Ho-Oh. That bird may seem all beautiful and mysterious, but was actually more of a parrot. It of course had its moments, but he kind of just avoided it and met Lugia afterward, who was calm and logical. So calm in fact that he met it when he was almost drowned by a whirlpool and sucked into an underwater cave where Lugia had been asleep at. "Yes," replied Professor Oak and started writing important details as he circled Superior, who was on a lab table, letting him check it. It looked extremely poised and serene. "Is he also a police officer or something?" asked Naruto curiously. That sounded like an awesome job. To get paid and have adventures just like his own job. Be on duty and stop bad guys every now and then. He could get paid while doing what was natural to him. "Yes, the champion title comes with many responsibility including keeping peace," replied Professor Oak. Naruto rubbed his chin and thought. "Alright, I'm heading off to Johto," said Naruto and brought out a Pokeball. "I'm going to leave Mew in your care." "Eh?" replied Professor Oak in surprise. He immediately grew worried. "Will Mew be okay with it?" "He'll be okay. Besides, he's grown since I first met him," said Naruto and held 2 fingers out. "He's now 2 years old." "A toddler's age," replied Oak. "All Pokémons matured quickly, but Mewtwo was a special case, so it probably matured slower." "Yes," drawled out Naruto. "Mew seemed so much older at times." "Won't you participate in the league at all?" asked Professor Oak. He was sure Gary would be upset to miss a battle against Naruto. "Nope. Quitting it just like the Frontier battle," said Professor Oak in a disappointed tone. "And I paid good money for that too." Naruto ignored the professor's rambling and brought out Mew's Pokeball. He passed it to Professor Oak, who hesitantly took it. Mewtwo was a very volatile Pokémon and might destroy his lab if he accidentally upset it. "Mew, you're now Professor Oak's lab assistant," said Naruto and grabbed Superior with a strained grunt before hastily leaving. Mew needed to learn that not all labs were for vicious purpose. Professor Oak choked as Mewtwo appeared out of it Pokeball looking ready to kill him. Mew eyed him suspiciously before looking at the starter Pokémons in the lab room that it had immediately located. Its psychic abilities were clearly first class. "Is this your lab?" "Yes," replied Professor Oak slowly and worried gulped. He was slightly surprised at hearing Mew's voice. Mew examined everything slowly before it looked back at Oak. "It doesn't look like the ones I'm familiar with," stated Mew as it broadcasted its thought. "Well, this is a research center. To help me understand Pokémon so that people can live peacefully with them," replied Oak. He was feeling more confident since Mew didn't destroy his lab yet. "Then I shall assist you as my master ordered," stated Mewtwo and sat down in a chair. Its tail got in the way, but it managed. It looked cute as it sat waiting for order, much like its origin Mew. Professor Oak smiled. "Great, I was planning to go and research in the forest nearby. You could help me in translating if that's okay with you." Mew nodded. It eyed the papers in Professor Oak's hand. "Are those writings?" "Yes," replied Professor Oak. "I can teach you if you like." Mew shook its head. With its psychic ability it would learn by itself. No explosions yet, said Naruto and panted heavily as he carried Superior over the mountains of Kanto to get over to Johto. He would have loved to use Leisho's, but Leisho said it needed to nap and so he was stuck with caring for the egg and Superior who was annoyed that he took away the attention it had and thus wouldn't carry him. It liked attention apparently, even if it was by a researcher. Lugia wasn't one to carry people unless it wanted to. It of course would love to swim, but that wasn't the case. Naruto dropped Superior and huffed. Superior was just toying with him now. Superior stretched before waiting for Naruto to lead. Naruto took the egg out of the light orange backpack he had gotten just for the egg and decided he'd carry it to keep it warm. He spotted a familiar cave and smiled. Through it he would end up near Newbark Town. It was too bad he'd missed the battle tournament at Indigo Plateau, but the thing was useless unless he could become champion through it. The tunnel was dark, but he easily passed through by sticking to walls and letting Superior go ahead of him to clear out any wild Pokémons that might attack him. It didn't battle Pokémons weaker than itself, but it wasn't above scaring others. Its glare is usually enough to silence those opposing it. "Ah, sunlight," he said as he stepped out of the cave on the side of the mountain. He was now officially in Johto territory. It was also the sister of Kanto. The two were connected through the Pokémon League. Thus meaning that two entire region had only one league. If one were to carefully check those facts then it would also be true that Kanto and Johto's Pokémon League were the most powerful out of all the leagues due to them only having the best from two continents. Superior slithered toward him making almost no noise at all. It didn't look even a bit dirty despite having passed through a cave. Naruto checked his surrounding and saw a beautiful lake. "That's the lake that'll lead me to Newbark Town." Superior raised its head high into the air. It stood 10 feet taller than Naruto as it scouted its surrounding. Superior was a monstrous-sized snake that could rival a full-grown Charizard in size. It was why Naruto had been so tired carrying it. It could be considered the grass melodic due to its beauty and royal look. "Come on," said Naruto and started jumping down the mountain. He easily reached the bottom without having to find a safe passage down. Superior swiftly followed him down. It used its long body to safely move down large portion of heights. Once down Naruto walked toward the visible lake. They stopped at the edge of the lake and looked at Superior. "Can you carry me across?" Superior stayed silent but eventually nodded. It was a natural swimmer like most snakes. Swimming and carrying a person was easily within its abilities. Naruto grinned and took care to carefully carry the egg and got on Superior. Superior glided into the lake and swam with ease. Its body seemed to float above the water. There were some new-looking Pokémons that passed them. A new wide-looking fish whose name escaped Naruto. "You know I never visited Unova before," said Naruto to Superior as they crossed. He was curious what it was like where Superior had come from. "It's the next place I was thinking of going to, but I started to like being a citizen of Pallet Town and research helper of Professor Oak." Superior silently kept moving and let Naruto tell his story. "I'm glad I didn't go though," said Naruto with a smile. "Otherwise I wouldn't have met a beautiful creature like you." Superior splashed him with its tail. Naruto laughed and used chakra to warm his arms to keep the egg warmer. "There it is," said Naruto as he saw the ending of the lake. Superior sped up and got out of the water with Naruto happily hopping off. "We're officially entering Newbark Town," stated Naruto with a bright smile. "This is also where Professor Elm is supposed to live. Where the shy Cyndaquil came from." Superior ignored Naruto and returned to its Pokeball. At the same time Typhlosion popped out looking refreshed. Naruto eyed Typhlosion with wide eyes. It had grown so much since he last saw it. Superior was a fast-growing Pokémon, since with water, sunlight, and food it grows rapidly, but Typhlosion seemed to have grown at least 2 feet taller. Typhlosion stood on 2 legs and looked down on Naruto. It grinned and brought its paw to his head to show him he was short. Naruto shook his head and turned to leave, but Leisho's chose to appear out of its Pokeball and took the egg from him. "Come on," called Naruto and started moving, but stopped as a red-hair boy wearing a black long sleeve passed them running hurriedly away. Naruto's eyes spotted the Pokeball the kid was clutching. The Pokeball had a small water emblem embedded on it. An emblem only used by a certain professor to label his Pokémons. "Leisho's use Psychic and bring that kid back," ordered Naruto and pointed to the running kid. Leisho's didn't hesitate and used its power. The running boy was lifted from where he was and brought back forcibly. The kid seemed surprised that he had been caught, but quickly brought out a second Pokeball and brought out his Pokémon. The Sneasel appeared. A cat-like Pokémon with sharp claws that could stand on 2 legs to fight. It looked ready to attack Leisho's. Typhlosion stepped in front of Leisho's to fight the Sneasel. Leisho's had an egg and wouldn't be able to fight. "Wait," said Naruto. Everyone stopped. The kid was dropped on the ground. Leisho's had did as he had asked and didn't see any reason to continue holding the kid up. The kid angrily got up and stared at his attackers. He looked surprised and frightened as he realized how highly evolved Typhlosion was and unnerved by Leisho's appearance. "You're Uzumaki," stated the red-haired kid. "So you know your trainers, even new ones," replied Naruto and eyed the Pokeball the kid held. "Is that yours?" The kid eyed Naruto warily and didn't reply. Leisho's cheerfully marched in between the intense silence and floated straight to the red-haired kid. Naruto was surprised by Leisho's action but decided to let Leisho's do what it wanted. It knew if people were evil just by being near them, so it probably knew the kid better despite having just met. Leisho's went face to face with the kid and cooed softly before presenting the kid the egg it held. The blue and white egg shimmered as it was presented. The kid looked shocked and surprised at the same time but slowly took the egg with an uncertain look. "I guess since Leisho's thinks you're okay I'll let you go," said Naruto and rubbed his chin in thought. "And I'll pretend I didn't see the Pokeball." The kid looked surprised again and nodded hesitantly. He still looked guarded in case it was all a trap. "Take care of that egg, because the Pokémon born from that will no doubt be a great help to whatever goal you're trying to achieve," said Naruto and stopped Typhlosion from starting a battle needlessly with its cocky attitude and started to leave and head for the town. "My name is Silver," said Silver suddenly as Naruto was leaving. "Silver," said Naruto testing out the kid's name and nodded. The kid nodded and ran off again, this time with one more future companion and his Sneasel running behind him. Naruto looked at Leisho's and smiled. "Hope you know what you did." Leisho's chirped confidently and did a happy dance in midair. Typhlosion scoffed and clicked its claws before following after Naruto. "Don't worry. Typhlosion's just upset he didn't battle," said Naruto to Leisho's as they reached New Bark Town. There were several Officer Jennies running around searching for the kid they had just met. "Halt!" shouted one Jenny that had spotted him. There was a loud whistle suddenly from the same one. "I found him," she shouted. Naruto gaped as he was suddenly surrounded by Jennies. Those crazy officers were suspecting him too often to be a coincidence. "You're the thief," said the one that had started it all. "Where is the Pokémon you stole from Elm?" "He said it was a starter Pokémon," said another. "It's the Typhlosion with him," assumed another one. "He must have stolen the Leisho's too," shouted a new one. "Take him in," shouted another. "Wait," shouted Naruto hurriedly, "I'm here to meet Professor Elm, I work for Professor Oak." They all stopped their advancement on him. "Can you prove it?" asked the one that had blown the whistle. Naruto slowly pulled out his Pokédex. "We wasted time," shouted another one as they saw the Pokédex open up and show his face and ID number. They all ran off searching and this time left the town to do a wide-scale search. Typhlosion sighed in relief at how close it had been from being taken away. Leisho's quickly went back to its cheerful attitude. Naruto led them to Professor Elm's lab. He knew where to go due to how small the town was and there was only one building big enough to be a research center. Naruto rang the bell on the door. A thin man in a white lab coat opened up. He wore glasses and looked weak. "Yes," answered the professor uncertainly. "Hello Professor," greeted Naruto and moved aside to let the professor see Typhlosion. The professor immediately smiled. "You must be Naruto." Naruto nodded. The professor smiled brightly, stepped forward and touched Typhlosion's neck. "You've grown so much." Typhlosion lowered its head and let the professor pat it. Leisho's cooed softly from behind. "I guess this day isn't so bad after all," said Professor Elm and motioned for them to enter. "I even get to see a Leisho's." Leisho's did a soft greeting and even offered its small arm for a handshake. The professor chuckled and shook it. So civilized. Typhlosion walked through the lab as if it were dazed and eventually came upon two Pokeballs that were being conditioned. It stared at the two Pokeballs and tapped them both. A baby Cyndaquil and an equally young Chikorita appeared. "These two are starters for upcoming trainers," said Professor Elm to Typhlosion. The professor patted the two baby Pokémons. "Typhlosion really missed your lab," said Naruto and remembered the tantrum Cyndaquil had thrown when he first met it. Professor Elm laughed and looked at Typhlosion. "I missed you too, but you had to go out and see the world." Typhlosion bear hugged the professor. The professor slowly lost color. "Careful, you'll crush him," said Naruto and took an empty chair to sit on. Typhlosion sheepishly let the professor go. Professor Elm gasped but chuckled afterward. "Definitely a lot strong. Naruto must have trained you a lot." "I'm sure you saw Typhlosion's stunt on the Frontier Channel," said Naruto from where he sat. Leisho's chirped in agreement. "Ah yes," replied Elm as he remembered. "Professor Oak mentioned it to me, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to watch. My satellite had been out of service at the time." "So Professor, I also came to visit you for another reason," said Naruto and decided to stop embarrassing Typhlosion. Professor Elm nodded. "If I can help I'd be happy to." "Well, I'm looking for Lance, the champion of the Elite Four," said Naruto. "Professor Oak said he was here in Johto." Professor Elm nodded. "Yes, he is, but even I don't know where he's at." Naruto slumped in disappointment. I guess I'll have to find him the old-fashioned way. Can I ask you for a favor? Asked Professor Elm as he sensed that Naruto was about ready to leave. Is it to find the thief? Asked Naruto curiously. Yes, replied Professor Elm. I suppose you found out from Officer Jenny. I met the thief by the lake, replied Naruto. But he's long gone. You met him? Asked Professor Elm and grew alarmed. Actually I stopped him, replied Naruto with a smile. Really? Asked Elm and brightened up again. But then I decided to let him go, finished Naruto. You let him go? Asked Professor Elm slowly. Leishos even liked him enough to give him its egg, said Naruto motioning to Leishos. Leishos did an innocent greeting. Professor Elm hung his head in despair. All I can confirm is he's not evil, said Naruto. That counted for something at least. Well, as long as he treats Totodile with care then I guess it'll ease my mind, replied Professor Elm. Leishos is a perfect judge of character, so you don't have to worry about anything, reassured Naruto. Well, I guess that does calms me a little, replied Professor Elm. Besides you still have 2 more starters to worry about first, reminded Naruto. That's right. Shouted Elm frantically as he was reminded. Today is the day the trainers are supposed to pick up their starters. I almost forgot. Anyway we'll be going now, said Naruto cheerfully and dragged Typhlosion away with Leishos helping Naruto. Professor Elm gave Typhlosion a tearful goodbye and let them leave. Naruto and Leishos walked out of New Bark Town or in Leishos' case floated. Typhlosion had been in tears and so had returned to its Pokeball to hide its joyful tears. You know every time I see a forest I feel at home, said Naruto to Leishos as they kept moving for the next town, which was Cherry Grove City. Since he had nothing to follow Lance with he'd just have to travel through Johto looking for the champion. Once he find him he could finally have his challenge instead of waiting an entire year. He would also have to make sure not to disrupt Lance's investigation at the same time. This sucks, grumbled Naruto and laid on tall green grass. Next to him laid Superior. Superior had come out to get some sunlight and Leishos had returned to its Pokeball to sleep. Hey, are you a trainer? Asked a kid's voice. Naruto looked up. A 10-year-old looking kid with black hair and gold color eyes wearing a shirt of red and white with a black and gold colored hat backward with his hair popping out in front of it. The kid wore a short for the warm day it seemed and carried a black backpack. Yes, replied Naruto casually. He knew napping on a route that led to Cherry Grove would lead him to passing trainers and maybe even Lance, and had decided to purposely nap there. Superior stretched and lifted its head to see the young trainer. It spotted the young trainer and went back to sleep. It didn't bother with the weak. Then I challenge you to a battle, said the young trainer. Naruto sat properly on the grass and faced the young trainer. Okay. Cyndaquil, show him our power. Called out the trainer and brought out his Cyndaquil. Naruto touched his chin as he saw the Cyndaquil. It was the one he met at Professor Elm's lab, meaning the trainer had no experience at all. Naruto looked at Superior who refused battle weak Pokemons. He instead pulled out Vulpix's Pokeball and kept sitting calmly on the tall grass. Vulpix. Called Naruto and let Vulpix come out of the Pokeball as he held it. Vulpix's appearance made the sunlight grow intense. Vulpix stepped forward and eyed its opponent. So what's your name? Asked Naruto. I'm Gold, replied Gold, and he smothered confidently. Cyndaquil and I are going to be the best in Johto by defeating all 8 gyms and the Elite Four. But at least you're aiming high, replied Naruto with a smile. Let's begin then. Cyndaquil, use Ember. Ordered Gold immediately. Vulpix stood calmly and let Cyndaquil use Ember on it. You just got your Cyndaquil, I see, said Naruto. Vulpix shook off the embers as if it were harmless leaves. But why? Asked Gold. Vulpix has an ability. It can't be hurt by fire attacks, it powers Vulpix up instead, explained Naruto. Vulpix, use your tail without the fire, ordered Naruto. Vulpix's tails glowed and it dashed to Cyndaquil who was too slow to react. It was hit multiple times and thrown across the grassy battleground. The attacks had been greatly toned down to allow Gold to gather some experience. Cyndaquil, get up and use quick attack, called Gold. Cyndaquil got up and started charging at Vulpix who waited calmly. That only works if your Pokemon's is at the same level or close in power compared to the opponent, stated Naruto. Vulpix dodged Cyndaquil and let the small mouse Pokemon run past it. And you have to learn when to also dodge, tutored Naruto. Vulpix moved in sync with Naruto's words and swung its tails at Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil ducked under the tails and did its best to avoid the tails. But your Cyndaquil is learning, commented Naruto. It seemed all Cyndaquils were quick learners. Cyndaquil used Tackle. Called out Gold. He gritted his teeth as he realized they were being toyed with. You also have to remain calm at all time, instructed Naruto. Vulpix blurred and dodged Cyndaquil's attack and used its tail to trip Cyndaquil at the same time. You also need to have great reaction and must as a trainer, said Naruto to Gold. Otherwise your Pokemons will pay the price. Cyndaquil rolled from being tripped, but it quickly got back up and ready to continue. Superior watched the battle as it laid calmly next to Naruto. Cyndaquil use Growl, ordered Gold. Vulpix was too powerful. Growl would lower its attack power. Again, those move only help when user is close or equally strong as the foe, explained Naruto. Otherwise the gap in power is too great to change. Vulpix used its tails and slapped Cyndaquil across the grassy field and hit a tree. It fell down with a grunt. Vulpix waited as Cyndaquil struggled to get back up. "Cyndaquil, eat your berry," yelled Gold. He had given it a berry before the battle. Cyndaquil popped a small orange berry in its mouth. "Items are also useful, but berries are one-time use only," explained Naruto. Vulpix appeared and used its tail to slap Cyndaquil repeatedly again. Cyndaquil curled into a ball and rolled away with the impact. "And your Cyndaquil learned that sometime it's better to go with the flow," said Naruto as Cyndaquil used the power from Vulpix attacks to get a quick boost in its roll and was now rolling everywhere in an attempt to hit Vulpix, but Vulpix was too fast to dodge. It was Flame Wheel without the flames since flames don't work. "Vulpix use extra sensory," ordered Naruto. Vulpix's eyes glowed. Cyndaquil's rolling stopped and it clutched its head before fainting. "And be prepared for the unexpected," said Naruto. "Because you never know when the opponent will use an attack you've never seen before." Gold withdrew his Cyndaquil and bowed before Naruto. "Thank you for the lessons," said Gold and got up before running off to Cherry Grove City for the Pokemon Center. Superior curled Naruto up as he laid back on the grass. Vulpix returned to its Pokeball to resume its peaceful sleep, where its sensitive ears wouldn't hear the loud noise of bug Pokemons filled in the forest. Naruto yawned as he woke up from the peaceful sleep he had taken. He took off his blue shirt and changed it to a fresh new one. He also switched his black pant instantaneously to avoid any incidents. Feeling ready, he got up and started heading for Violet City. Naruto's mouth grew watery as he remembered about their famous rice cake. Leishos would definitely love it since it enjoyed human food a lot. "They also have a Bellsprout Tower," said Naruto to Superior as they explored the city. He munched on his rice cake and aimlessly walked through the city. Superior didn't care about the food and simply followed. Leishos was giggling as it munched on its own food behind them. Leishos was flying in plain sight but was invisible. Naruto for the life of him didn't know why Leishos hadn't done that at the battle towers. "Look, a Bellsprout Tower," said Naruto to Superior. "It's dedicated solely for the Bellsprout Pokemon." The tower was great for upcoming Pokemon trainers. Superior didn't show any interest. Bellsprouts were weak so it simply had no interest. "Oh well," muttered Naruto and started heading for the next city. It was Goldenrod City. He'd probably find a lead there somewhere. "I got it," said Naruto to Superior. He quickly combed his hair and brought out makeup out and lightened his skin color. His hair was now spiky and his skin was a lighter shade. Superior gave him a confused look. "We'll go undercover. Find any shady people and work from within. It's what Lance is probably doing, how else would he be off the charts?" said Naruto to his beloved Superior. Superior shrugged. It couldn't care less about what pointless searching he was doing. Naruto hopped on Superior and pointed to the direction of Goldenrod City. They stopped shortly after Superior come upon an obstacle blocking the route. "The tree," said Naruto to Superior as they both stopped their traveling due to a large tree blocking the route they were on. "The tree looks strange." "Superior, cut it down," ordered Naruto. Superior's vines came out and prepared to lash at the tree. The vines made a sharp hissing noise as it was swung. "Huh," said Naruto as he just witnessed a tree just barely duck to dodge Superior's vines. Superior stopped its vines and watched in curiosity. "The Pokemon," stated Naruto slowly and laughed. He should have sensed it, but the Pokemon had been so still he hadn't bothered to check. Naruto brought out his Pokédex. A rare occasion since he had seen almost every Pokemon in Johto. Sudowoodo, the rock Pokemon. "It often poses as a tree to avoid trouble and hates it when people mistakenly water it," said the Pokédex's voice. Naruto looked to Superior. "Well, since it's hiding, why don't you just jump over?" Superior blurred as it ran in a full circle to gather speed. Naruto almost fell off, but managed to stay on. Superior jumped over Sudowoodo and easily go on the other side. "Nice jump," commented Naruto. Superior could have jumped over a house with the speed it had gathered. Superior nodded and resumed its slithering toward Goldenrod City. "The city that doesn't sleep," said Naruto to Superior as they reached the outskirts of the city. It was night already, but the city was glowing with lights. "We'll start our search tomorrow," said Naruto to Superior and prepared camp. What if Naruto was the top Pokemon trainer? End here and thanks for watching my video till the end.